Chapter 332. A Genius Remembering Love in 1 Second? Net provides you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 334. The War Between the Two Sacred Areas. A rare phenomenon has taken place on the Duanmu Mountain. A peerless genius has appeared. A peerless genius has appeared. Head to the Duanmu Mountain at once. Let's go. Quick. If the rare phenomenon caused by Jiang Bailan triggering 659 Dao-seeking fish had attracted the attention of most of the envoys and peak leaders of the Qinglong sacred area, the rare phenomenon caused by Qin Nan had startled even the peak leaders who were cultivating in seclusion, causing them to rush to the Duanmu Mountain at their fastest speed. Shush 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 shush. One after another, powerful figures descended from the sky. The other 4 peak leaders of the Qinglong sacred area and over 10 envoys had all arrived. In other words, apart from the envoys who were not present, all the authorities of the Qinglong sacred area had gathered here. However, when they arrived and took a closer look at the scene before them, similar to the others, their faces were filled with great astonishment. At that instant, even though a total of 20 peak leaders, over 500 envoys, and over 600 disciples had gathered on the Duanmu Mountain, the only sound that could be heard was the piercing sound of the crimson ray piercing through the heavens. 999 Dao-seeking fish. How significant was that? Even the imperial exterminator Tang Qingshan had only triggered 666 Dao-seeking fish, but Qin Nan had managed to trigger 333 Dao-seeking fish more than him. At that instant, the 3 peak leaders of the Feiyang sacred area felt as if their minds were struck by lightning, as they instantly came to a realization. 79XS. Why did the Duanmu Mountain Lord allow them to take the top 4 geniuses? Why did peak leader Luo not declare war against the Duanmu Mountain Lord and the others for the sake of Qin Nan? Why was Qin Nan not worried after seeing Jiang Bailan's result, but still dared to go up the mountain? All of this was because Qin Nan was a true peerless genius. The Duanmu Mountain Lord, Peak Master Luo, and the others knew this, which was why they were so crazy about Qin Nan. Qin Nan was even more confident. He believed that he would definitely not lose. In addition to the 3 peak leaders, all the envoys and peak leaders at the scene came to a realization. Quick update, the website is refreshing with few advertisements. I love this kind of website the most. You must give me a good review. In front of this shocking truth, their anger and ridicule towards the Duanmu Mountain Lord seemed so laughable. Jiang Bailan's face turned extremely pale after seeing this, as if she had just been struck by a giant beast. How was this possible? How could Qin Nan, who only possessed a mere 10th grade Huang-ranked martial spirit, drive all the Dao-seeking fish crazy? Was the secret of the martial serendipity pavilion so powerful? As for Sima Kong, Jiao Zhe, and the rest of the geniuses, their minds went blank, and they had no idea what to say. In the midst of the astonishment, Peak Master Luo's eyes became excited. As expected of Qin Nan, to break the record and achieve such a shocking result. However, he soon collected his thoughts and uttered a roar to break the silence. F***K, you bunch of idiots, do you see it clearly now? Why the F***K are you still standing there? Do it now. Take Qin Nan away from me. Otherwise I'll kill you all. The roar caused the 3 peak leaders and the envoys of the Feiyang sacred area to recover from the shock, with their faces burning. However, now was not the time to feel ashamed, as they uttered a series of roars and dashed toward Qin Nan like starving wolves in the desert. Feiyang sacred area, you guys are shameless. According to the agreement, Qin Nan belongs to the Qinglong sacred area. The Duanmu Mountain Lord's face turned furious. Now you're trying to take him away? Why didn't you think of this when you were being smug at the beginning? Haha, Duanmu Mountain Lord, we never said that. The 3 peak leaders of the Feiyang sacred area were not bothered at all, as their eyes burned passionately. So what if they're shameless? I must take Qin Nan away today at all costs. People of the Qinglong sacred area, listen up. Grab the people of the Feiyang sacred area and beat them up. The Duanmu mountain lord became enraged as he uttered a roar. Let's go! How shameless, trying to take someone from the Qinglong sacred area. Damn it, how dare you do such a thing in the Qinglong sacred area? I'll teach you all a lesson today. The peak leaders and the envoys soon collected their thoughts and became infuriated. They no longer treated the Duanmu mountain lord and Qin Nan with the same attitude. At that instant, a terrifying battle took place on the Duanmu mountain, causing the entire mountain to shake vigorously. If one were to glance downward from above, they would discover that the towering Duanmu mountain was the only one in the Qinglong mountain range that was encapsulated by various glows. A ferocious aura shook the entire Qinglong mountain range. If it weren't for the atavistic forbidding aura protecting the Duanmu mountain, it would most likely be destroyed by the destructive force. Meanwhile, on Duanmu Peak, as the battle took place, the Qinglong sacred area had the upper hand in terms of geography, as the 16 peak leaders and a few hundred envoys were able to suppress the people of the Feiyang sacred area in just a few breaths' time. Qinglong sacred area. You've gone too far. At that instant, a shocking explosion could be heard all of a sudden as the space collapsed. From the gap, the other 11 peak leaders of the Feiyang sacred area and a few hundred envoys turned into a huge army and arrived at the scene. Great timing! Defeat these assholes of the Qinglong sacred area at once, and bring Qin Nan away. Remember, don't disturb Qin Nan. Peak leader Luo was extremely frustrated, but after seeing the arrival of the reinforcements, a hint of joy could be seen on his face. The Duanmu mountain lord, peak leader Zhang, and the others were startled. They did not expect this peak leader Luo to secretly spread the news without alerting anyone. The peak leaders and the envoys of the Feiyang sacred area immediately glanced toward the dojo. Before they arrived, they had received a message from peak leader Luo. According to the message, a peerless genius had appeared, thus they immediately rushed here with the full force of their sect. Until now, they still had no idea how powerful this peerless genius was. However, when they saw the 999 Dao-seeking fish on the dojo, their faces were filled with astonishment. What the F***K? Are my eyes playing tricks on me? 999 Dao-seeking fish. Since when was there such a monster in the lower district? Snatch him. One of the peak leaders was the first to recover from the shock as he uttered a roar. Let's go. Snatch him. The other peak leaders and the envoys swiftly collected their thoughts. Now was not the time to be astonished. Let's snatch him first. At that instant, following the arrival of the army of the Feiyang sacred area, the cries of battle from Duanmu Peak caused the sky within a few thousand li to shatter into pieces, causing the activation of the forbidding aura on Duanmu Peak to grow stronger. Despite that, it was still shaking vigorously, as if the entire mountain was going to collapse at any moment. Chapter 333. A Genius Remembering Love in 1 Second? Shua.net provides you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 335, The Wrath of Qin Nan, the Dao-seeking fish, a mysterious creature that was born from the heavens and earth. It was able to sense a cultivator's talent, personality, etc. Almost all the books you want to read are here. It's more stable than ordinary websites, and the updates are faster too. It's all written with no advertisements. 79XS. The only difference between it and the potential stone was that the rank of the martial spirit did not affect it too much, and it was unable to predict the future. Although it was unable to predict the future, in the previous trials, the geniuses who were able to trigger a certain number of Dao-seeking fish would usually achieve great things in the future. The peak leaders, envoys, etc. had all experienced the same trial in the past. As such, the two sacred areas had gone crazy for Qin Nan. The peak leaders, etc., no longer cared about their identities, and shamelessly fought against one another. Why was that? Previously, the Imperial Exterminator, Tang Qingshan, had only triggered 666 Dao-seeking fish. His achievements after that had shocked the entire lower district, despite the fact that Tang Qingshan's personality had changed tremendously, resulting in him killing countless cultivators. Now that Qin Nan had triggered 999 Dao-seeking fish, which was unprecedented, how terrifying would his achievements be? It was unimaginable. Everyone knew that the two sacred areas were different from the Xianling clan. They were the top two factions in the lower district, with great foresight and great power. Most of the experts would not be arrogant just because of their identities. Instead, they would place great importance on young geniuses, as they were the future hope of the sect. All of a sudden, as the entire Duanmu mountain was immersed in a chaotic battle, a furious roar could be heard. The furious roar was extremely weak in the midst of the battle, but at that instant it was extremely loud and clear, as the one uttering the roar was none other than Qin Nan, who was surrounded by the Dao-seeking fish. K-me. Stop it. Something's happening to Qin Nan. Motherf***ker, you're still hitting your sister? Stop right now. This isn't good, something strange is happening to Qin Nan. Stop it at once, if anyone doesn't stop, I'll torture him to death. The peak leaders of the Qinglong sacred area and the Feiyang sacred area collected their thoughts and uttered a roar. At this instant, in less than 10 breaths' time, the entire Duanmu peak actually recovered its silence from the monstrous explosion. The peak leaders and envoys of the two sacred areas immediately glanced at the dojo. After all, no one had ever managed to gather 999 Dao-seeking fish. Therefore, even the peak leaders did not dare to act recklessly as they were clueless about what was happening. If they were to interrupt something and cause Qin Nan to be severely injured, they would all die of depression. Die. Translator Qin Nan in the middle of the 999 Dao-seeking fish, a ferocious flame was fired into the sky, which turned out to be Qin Nan. At that instant, Qin Nan was infuriated, who held the two sabers in his hands and unleashed the full force of his body, causing a tremendous saber intent to slash at the Dao-seeking fish. This time, Qin Nan was truly infuriated. He finally understood why the Dao-seeking fish were staring at him, and why the school of Dao-seeking fish dashed toward him like hungry wolves as soon as he appeared. The reason being that the Dao-seeking fish were eyeing the chaos chi in his body. Within a short period of time, before Qin Nan could react, 10 streams of chaos chi had been devoured by the school of Dao-seeking fish. Unlike before, the divine battle spirit had stagnated, and the chaos chi was no longer produced. As a result, there were only 40 streams of chaos chi left in his body, each of which was extremely precious. Even the mysterious copper mirror was attracted to them. Therefore, Qin Nan treated the remaining chaos chi as a precious treasure. However, these assholes dared to rob him of his chaos chi. Kill! Qin Nan emitted a boundless saber intent, which encapsulated the 999 Dao-seeking fish. The Dao-seeking fish were covered in a crimson glow, while the blue glow in their eyes grew stronger. They were not knocked back by Qin Nan's saber intent, but instead dashed toward him and engaged in a battle with Qin Nan, resulting in a series of loud bangs. At that instant, the peak leaders and the envoys of the two sacred areas were dumbfounded. What was going on? Why were they fighting each other? It was the first time in the history of the competition that a genius dared to attack the Dao-seeking fish. The most important question was, who should they help under such circumstances? Help Qin Nan fight the Dao-seeking fish? Or stop Qin Nan? Even the peak leaders, who were extremely knowledgeable, could not help but feel a sense of helplessness, as they had no idea what to do next. Dao-seeking fish, you bunch of assholes. I'm not done with you today. Qin Nan let out a series of furious roars. His left eye emitted a golden glow as the saber intent grew stronger. Even a sixth-layer martial Emperor realm expert would be knocked back by his terrifying attacks, but the Tao-seeking fish before him had no effect at all. Not only that, the Tao-seeking fish were extremely smart too. As their figures dashed forward, they activated the formation, allowing one Tao-seeking fish to dash out from Qin Nan's attacks and bite at Qin Nan's figure, absorbing a stream of chaos qi from Qin Nan's body. Each Tao-seeking fish would absorb a stream of chaos qi, causing their bodies to emit a brilliant glow, which was distributed equally to each Tao-seeking fish, allowing them to digest the chaos qi. As a result, their auras grew stronger, as they occasionally uttered mocking sounds, as if they were mocking Qin Nan's incompetence. In just a short period of time, 26 streams of Qin Nan's 40 streams of chaos qi had been devoured by the Tao-seeking fish. Heavenly accumulating strike. Qin Nan's eyes flickered coldly as his figure leapt into the air and gathered his cultivation, saber intent, etc. at the tip of his finger, forming a terrifying killing blow. The faces of the peak leaders and the envoys in mid-air changed, as they realized that this was not good. The Tao-seeking fish emitted a brilliant glow as they sensed a great danger, causing them to scatter in all directions. Kill them all! Qin Nan locked his gaze onto the Tao-seeking fish that had yet to escape, and prepared to execute the heavenly accumulating strike without mercy. However, at that instant a rare occurrence took place. A scorching gust of wind was emitted from Qin Nan's body, which was emitted from his pores in all directions. It was as if he had transformed into an atavistic giant beast, who opened his bloody mouth and spat out a strong gust of wind from his throat, forming a tornado that swept across the entire dojo, causing the temperature to rise rapidly, as if summer had arrived. Shit! Qin Nan's face turned pale. The 9-lined golden core could no longer be held back, as it was about to trigger a calamity. Chapter 334. Genius 1 second. Remember love divided by little? Here's an interesting novel for you to read. C_T. Chapter 336. Teaming up to battle the Tao-seeking fish. The peak leaders and the envoys on the Duanmu mountain were astounded after seeing this. A love go little say, Chu. That was fast. What's going on? Why is the tribulation of the martial emperor realm? F***K. The tribulation of the martial emperor realm at this time, won't it affect Qin Nan? Damn it. Of all times, why is it happening at this time? What should we do now? The authorities of the two sacred areas could feel their hearts clenching due to the rare occurrence. The Duanmu mountain lord's expression changed slightly at first, before his eyes emitted a brilliant glow as a sudden thought crossed his mind. Don't panic! Do you know what it means to trigger the tribulation of the martial emperor realm at this time? The words served as a thunderous explosion in the minds of the peak leaders and the envoys. According to the rumors, when a law-defying presence was about to be born, there would be a grand occasion, similar to the coronation of an emperor. The occasion was considered extremely grand in the entire lower district. At this time, Qin Nan had triggered the tribulation of the heavens and earth. Without a doubt, he was about to produce a law-defying inner core. Upon having this thought, their worries were completely gone, as they could not help but feel excited. Love go little say, Chu as expected of Qin Nan, as expected of the presence that triggered 999 Tao-seeking fish. What kind of law-defying tribulation of the martial emperor realm is this? Meanwhile, the geniuses who were here to participate in the trial stared at Qin Nan's figure with blank expressions. What was the definition of a peerless genius? This was it. The appearance of a single person had caused the two sacred areas to go crazy. Meanwhile, Jiang Bailan's face was extremely pale, as if there was no sign of blood in it. She was the saintess who was loved by everyone, and possessed a 9th-grade Xian-ranked martial spirit. She was destined to head to the upper district in the future, But now, a mere Qin Nan had surpassed her and left her in the dust. Please go here to read a book. How could this be? This was simply impossible. Regardless of whether it was possible or not, on this day, no matter what kind of prodigy they would all pale in comparison to Qin Nan. This day belonged to Qin Nan. Swish, swish. The scorching wind gushing out of Qin Nan's body became more and more violent. Above his head, waves of ripples appeared. That was the energy of the heavens and earth gathering. The Tao-seeking fish, who were initially aware of the threat posed by the heavenly accumulating strike, immediately turned around and dashed toward Qin Nan once again, while their mocking voices grew louder. You actually want to resist? Damn it. Qin Nan's face turned extremely dark. These Tao-seeking fish were shameless indeed, trying to harm him while his tribulation was approaching. Kill. Qin Nan was infuriated. He no longer cared about the golden core in his body. If he could kill one, he would kill one. If he could kill two, he would kill two. However, due to the influence of the tribulation of the heavens and earth, the power emitted by the golden core in Qin Nan's body gradually weakened, causing his attacks to become weaker and weaker. Thus he was unable to resist the attacks of the school of Tao-seeking fish. The Tao-seeking fish lunged at Qin Nan and tore at his figure. In just a brief moment, they had absorbed over 10 streams of chaos chi. What are you waiting for? Qin Nan's expression changed tremendously as he yelled at the copper mirror in his divine sense. Right now, there were only 4 strands of chaos chi left in his body. Buzz. The copper mirror emitted a brilliant glow as the icy female voice appeared from above the 9 heavens with a hint of fury. How bold of you assholes to devour the chaos chi when I'm not around. Following the roar, a terrifying suppression was emitted from Qin Nan's body. The peak leaders and the envoys on the Duanmu mountain were startled as they sensed something. The Tao-seeking fish that were bullying Qin Nan shuddered as their eyes were filled with great terror, causing them to flee for their lives. As for the copper mirror, a power that seemed to originate from ancient times could be sensed. It was as if it had transcended the boundless void and come from some unknown world. However, all of a sudden, an invisible seal appeared deep within the copper mirror, making it impossible for the power to move. Qin Nan, there's an accident. You have to deal with it yourself. The icy female voice suddenly spoke. What? Qin Nan's mind was filled with black lines. Deal with it himself? Aren't you very impressive? Why can't you deal with these Tao-seeking fish? However, Qin Nan had no idea that it was related to some ancient secret. If he knew, he would most likely choose to remain silent. At that instant, the ancient suppression emitted by the copper mirror vanished. The peak leaders and the envoys wore blank expressions as they glanced at Qin Nan. What was going on? Why was there such a terrifying suppression? Was it just their imagination? The Tao-seeking fish that were fleeing in all directions seemed to be aware of something, as they burst out laughing once again and charged forward. The last 4 streams of chaos chi in Qin Nan's body were completely devoured. Assholes. Qin Nan's face turned incredibly pale. Apart from Princess Meow Meow, it was his first time being robbed by someone else, not to mention a bunch of Tao-seeking fish out of nowhere. At that instant, the golden core inside Qin Nan's body emitted a buzzing sound, which grew louder, as if an atavistic beast was uttering a loud roar. Phew! Qin Nan exhaled deeply, trying to calm his thoughts. Either way, I should overcome the tribulation of the heavens and earth first. After that, I'll deal with these Tao-seeking fish. Out. After making up his mind, Qin Nan ignored the presence of the Tao-seeking fish, and with a thought, the golden core inside his body was fired into the sky. As the golden core soared into the sky, the 9 golden runes on its surface emitted a brilliant golden glow, as if 9 golden suns had suddenly risen into the sky. The force of the heavens and earth that was accumulating in the rift began to boil at that instant. The rift within 3 li of Qin Nan began to distort, resulting in an oppressive aura. The faces of the peak leaders and the envoys changed tremendously after seeing this. What's that? 9 golden runes? Oh my god, is the legend real? F*** K me. What the F*** K is that inner core? I've never seen it before. Gasp. The appearance of this inner core has caused the force of the heavens and earth within 3 miles to boil. Many of the envoys were utterly shocked, as they had never seen such a golden core before. Only the peak leaders of the 2 sacred areas felt like their throats were being squeezed, causing them to hold their breaths, as they had seen it before in ancient records. However, was that legend actually true? Chapter 335. A Genius Remembering Love in 1 Second? Here's a fascinating novel for you to read. C_T. Chapter 337, 666 Zhang. Everyone, I believe you are unaware of this. Visit. The Duanmu mountain lord took a deep breath and said in a serious tone, among the atavistic cultivators, the inner core of a martial cultivator, also known as the golden core, is classified into different grades. The first grade consists of 3 golden lines, the second grade consists of 6 golden lines, and the third grade consists of 9 golden lines. According to the records, those who have a 9-lined golden core are Jiu-Jitsu's ultimate golden core. In other words, below the martial ancestor realm, those with a 9-lined golden core are ranked first. The crowd of envoys was astounded. The same person appeared in their minds at the same time, the Imperial Exterminator Tang Qingshan. The Imperial Exterminator Tang Qingshan had practiced the famous Imperial Mortal Scriptures, which allowed him to be ranked first among his peers. However, even without practicing the Imperial Mortal Scriptures, Qin Nan was able to rank first among his peers. Jiu-Jitsu's ultimate golden core, the martial emperor realm. How imperious was that? Impressive. Impressive. Qin Nan's rise will surely lead the lower district. Not only the lower district, I believe his appearance will shatter the storm brought by the Imperial Exterminator in the past. The envoys were astounded. Meanwhile, the eyes of the envoys and the peak leaders burned passionately. They had to recruit such a peerless genius into their sacred area. If they could recruit Qin Nan, they would not have to worry about the future of their sacred area. Once Qin Nan grew stronger, he would surely bring them a new era of glory. Bang, bang, bang. As the force of the heavens and earth became restless, a huge stormy cloud was formed rapidly. Within the stormy cloud, it was no longer blue lightning, but purple lightning, resulting in a shocking sight. Upon seeing this, the crowd of envoys became restless once again. That's a 9-lined golden core. How long will the tribulation be? I remember that according to historical records, when the Imperial Exterminator Tang Qingshan broke through to the martial king realm in the Xianling clan, he attracted a lightning tribulation of 500 feet. Even our 2 holy lands were shocked. Look at the saints, prospective saints, and the legendary figures of the big shots. Their tribulations are all 300 to 400 meters long. Qin Nan will definitely surpass them. Not only the envoys, but the 32 peak leaders of the 2 sacred grounds were also filled with anticipation. There are almost all the books you want to read. It's much more stable than the average website. The updates are also faster. There are no advertisements. With the Tao-seeking fish, Qin Nan had broken the Imperial Exterminator's legend. Now that the lightning tribulation had arrived, would it still be enough to break the legend of the Imperial Exterminator? Boom, boom, boom. The stormy clouds in the sky spread in all directions, emitting a terrifying aura. 100 zhang, 200 zhang, 300 zhang, 4,000 zhang. At that instant, the faces of the peak leaders and the envoys changed, as if their hearts were in their throats. 500 zhang. The faces of the peak leaders and the envoys shuddered violently. 600 zhang. The lightning tribulation only came to a complete stop when it reached 666 zhang. On the other hand, the expressions of the peak masters and emissaries that filled the sky on Duanmu Peak turned pale with astonishment. 666 zhang. How significant was that? A total of 166 zhang higher than the imperial exterminators. Yet another legend has been broken by Qin Nan. Monster, monster, monster. Among the crowd of geniuses, only Sima Kong was still conscious. Although his mind was clear, his face was filled with a blank expression as he continued to mumble to himself. As the man with 5 black lines of the trading alliance, in terms of knowledge, he was more knowledgeable than the peak leaders. Despite that, his thoughts were not enough to comprehend the situation. Qin Nan frowned his eyebrows all of a sudden. He could faintly feel that after the 666 zhang tribulation was formed, his 9-lined golden core was emitting a faint hint of dissatisfaction. It was as if the dissatisfaction was implying that the 666 zhang tribulation was not enough for his status. What's going on? Qin Nan's left eye emitted a golden glow as he scanned the sky. With a single glance, he immediately noticed that there was a mysterious force of the heavens and earth gathering behind the dark clouds. It was filled with malice and hostility. The calamity of the atavistic cultivator. Qin Nan was startled. He had encountered the same calamity when the Xianling clan had ranked up to the martial emperor realm. However, his inner core had been merged with the will of the left eye of the divine god of battle, resulting in a 7-colored inner core, which contained a tremendous power, shattering the calamity into pieces. Qin Nan initially thought that the calamity would disappear after shattering the inner core. He did not expect it to appear again today. It seems like the calamity is hindering the tribulation of the 9-lined golden core, causing my tribulation to be reduced to 666 zhang. Not only that, it seems to be accumulating energy, trying to attack my 9-lined golden core. Qin Nan immediately realized the reason behind it, causing his expression to turn stern. The atavistic calamity was extremely difficult to deal with. Previously, it had almost knocked his inner core back to him. Now that the calamity had grown stronger and was prepared, it was even harder to deal with. What should I do now? Damn it, there's no more chaos chi. Otherwise, I could merge the chaos chi into my inner core to improve its power. Qin Nan instinctively clenched his fist. This goddamned Tao-seeking fish. The peak leaders and the envoys finally realized that something was wrong when they saw the tribulation not descending. Calamity. Qin Nan used to be an atavistic cultivator. This isn't good. Many geniuses failed to rank up to the martial emperor realm due to the calamity. Kami, what should we do now? The peak leaders and the envoys could feel their hearts beating rapidly, as if it was not Qin Nan who was ranking up to the martial emperor realm, but themselves, causing them to feel extremely anxious. At that instant, a rare occurrence took place. Bang, bang, bang. A series of explosions took place all of a sudden. On each of the 999 Tao-seeking fish, a crimson glow was fired into the sky, emitting a powerful aura that was on par with Qin Nan's 666 zhang tribulation. At that instant, the peak leaders and the envoys were stunned. What was going on? Why were the Tao-seeking fish experiencing a rare occurrence too? Qin Nan's attention was attracted by the change too. With a glimpse, his face was filled with astonishment. What was going on? Why were these Tao-seeking fish evolving? Qin Nan was startled for a brief moment, before he immediately collected his thoughts. These Tao-seeking fish were aware of the chaos chi in his body, and were trying to acquire it in a crazy manner. It was most likely that the chaos chi was extremely beneficial to them, allowing them to evolve now. If the Tao-seeking fish were to evolve, what would they look like? Bang! At that instant, the crimson glow emitted from the bodies of each Tao-seeking fish was fired, which collided with a certain spot, resulting in a powerful explosion. Following this, at the spot where the crimson glow had exploded, an ancient arched door slowly appeared. Deep inside the door, a faint roar of the ocean could be heard. The eyes of the Tao-seeking fish that had lost their crimson glow emitted a brilliant glow as they swam toward the arched door at a rapid pace, before jumping into it. Chapter 336. A Genius Remembering Love in 1 Second? Net provides you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 338. The Battle of Life and Death, Fish Leaping Through the Dragon Gate? Oh my god, these Tao-seeking fish can still level up. F***K. Are they going to give birth to a Tao-seeking dragon? The peak leaders and the envoys exclaimed. Marshmallow 79 fish leaping through the dragon gate. This was an ancient secret that everyone knew. According to the rumors, each fish contained the bloodline of a dragon. After thousands of years of cultivation, they would be able to summon the dragon gate, jump through the dragon gate, and evolve into a real dragon. Many of the beasts from the ancient fish tribe had also evolved into real dragons. However, these Tao-seeking fish were not beasts, but magical creatures born from the heavens and earth. Shush! 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 The Tao-seeking fish continued to enter the dragon gate. Deep inside the dragon gate, it was as if a powerful presence was brewing and was about to be born. These assholes, trying to evolve into real dragons with the help of my chaos chi. Qin Nan clenched his teeth. If it weren't for the arrival of the tribulation, he would have charged forward and slashed the dragon gate in half. Bang! All of a sudden, an explosion took place behind the stormy clouds. It turned out that the calamity of the atavistic cultivator had been fully accumulated and transformed into an illusionary figure of a giant hand, as if it was the hand of God, which grabbed at the 9-lined golden core. The 9-lined golden core began to buzz after sensing the danger, as if it were infuriated. The will of the blazing sun golden armor body technique was unleashed deep inside the golden core. Bang! Even the 9-lined golden core was no match against the illusionary giant hand, and was constantly knocked backward. Qin Nan's face turned pale as his figure was knocked backward, causing his aura to drop rapidly. The peak leaders and the envoys who were attracted by the Tao-seeking fish tensed their bodies upon seeing this. They clearly knew that the tribulation was not the most terrifying thing for Qin Nan, but the calamity of the atavistic cultivation. Furthermore, they could not interfere with the tribulation. Only Qin Nan could resist it with his own strength. You tried to snipe me last time, and now you're trying to snipe me again. Do you really think I'm a pushover? Qin Nan tasted something sweet in his throat, and he almost coughed up a mouthful of blood. Such an injury caused the pride in his bones to erupt. He immediately circulated his divine sense and activated his 9-lined golden core. Instead of retreating, he advanced toward the calamity. Quick update: the website is refreshing with few advertisements. I love this kind of website the most. You must give me a good review. Boom. 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 Every time the 9 marks golden core collided with the calamity, ripples would appear in the surroundings. It was as if the void was distorting. Although the 9-lined golden core was in a disadvantageous position, it was still quite extraordinary, and would not be defeated for the time being. Meanwhile, the 999 Tao-seeking fish finally leaped into the dragon's door. A powerful force was emitted from deep within the dragon's door, which faintly resembled an enormous object being formed. Roar! A shocking roar filled with an imperious aura echoed in the air. A giant purple fish more than 5 zhang long. It had a pair of wings, scales like a dragon, and golden eyes. It suddenly soared into the sky from the depths of the dragon gate, bringing with it a boundless pressure. Unlike the Tao-seeking fish, its aura had merged perfectly with the heavens and earth. With a single thought, it could cause the heavens and earth to vibrate vigorously. Furthermore, its golden eyes emitted countless mystical glows, which were filled with intelligence. Human, you dare to disobey me. Now that your tribulation has arrived, it's time for me to teach you a lesson. The giant purple fish stared at Qin Nan with a disdainful look, before it suddenly opened its mouth and spat out a stream of force of the heavens and earth into the illusionary giant hand of calamity. It all happened so quickly that even the peak leaders and the envoys did not expect it to happen at all. Qin Nan held his breath. The aura of the illusionary giant hand of calamity skyrocketed all of a sudden, causing its entire arm to solidify as if it had materialized, before it hurled a punch at the 9-lined golden core. Bang! The 9-lined golden core received a powerful blow, causing its aura to be utterly destroyed. A crack could be seen on the surface of the golden core. Puff! Qin Nan's face turned pale white, as if his figure had just been rammed by a giant beast, causing him to spit out a mouthful of blood. His aura was extremely weakened. Ha! The heavens and earth are indeed blessing me. I did not expect to stumble into a 9-lined golden core as soon as I was born. I shall now devour your golden core and transform into an ancient Tao-seeking dragon. The eyes of the giant purple fish flickered with a hint of pride. It turned out that after absorbing the chaos chi inside Qin Nan's body, even though it had passed the dragon gate, it was still unable to transform into a real dragon. It would only be able to level up after devouring the 9-lined golden core. Whoosh! With a flicker, the giant purple fish immediately arrived above the 9-lined golden core and opened its bloody mouth, trying to devour it. How bold! Die! How dare you, asshole! Stop it! At that instant, the peak leaders collected their thoughts and unleashed thunderous roars, causing the entire Duanmu peak to tremble violently, causing the color of the heavens and earth to change. Even though they had no idea what the giant purple fish was, they did not expect it to devour Qin Nan's 9-lined golden core. I don't care what it is, it's courting death. The giant purple fish had already predicted this. When it first discovered the chaos chi inside Qin Nan's body, it did not act recklessly as it was wary of the experts. However, since Qin Nan had presented himself to it, it was perfectly justifiable for it to attack him without attracting the attention of the peak leaders. Just a moment ago, it had also calculated that even the peak leaders would not be able to kill it in a short period of time. Once it devoured the 9-lined golden core, it would be able to roam freely in the heavens and earth. Even the peak leaders would not be bothered by it. Crap! The weakened Qin Nan could sense a strong sense of danger at that instant. If the 9-lined golden core was devoured by the asshole, the consequences would be unimaginable. In the blink of an eye, it was as if Qin Nan's mind was suddenly opened, as countless thoughts flashed across his mind. The closer he was to death, the calmer he became. There must be a way. I can't let it devour the golden core. Qin Nan's mind was extremely tense. At that instant, it was as if everything had slowed down. The peak leader's actions had slowed down, and the giant purple fish's bloody mouth was slowly closing in on Qin Nan. Buzz! Qin Nan's eyes emitted a brilliant glow as a sudden thought crossed his mind. The giant purple fish was evolved from 999 Tao-seeking fish, and those 999 Tao-seeking fish had evolved after devouring his chaos chi. The chaos chi was something that belonged to him, originating from the ancient world. Previously at Jianghuang City, he was able to cause the weapon spirit to explode by manipulating the chaos chi. Now, although the giant purple fish had refined the chaos chi, its body still contained the force of the chaos chi. He could use the same method as last time to control the chaos chi again. Either way, let's give it a try. Qin Nan's divine sense instantly went crazy. In the nick of time, his divine sense encapsulated the giant purple fish's figure. The giant purple fish's movement stiffened slightly, before it bit down without hesitation. An inch. Half an inch. The entire 9-vein golden core was completely swallowed up by the giant purple fish. A look of ecstasy appeared on the giant purple fish's face. Qin Nan's eyes also emitted a godly glow at the same time. It worked. Chapter 337. The Genius Remembers Love in 1 Second? Here's a wonderful novel for you to read. C_T. Chapter 339. The Sacred Leader is Startled, Qin Nan. The faces of the Duanmu Mountain Lord and the others instantly turned pale. 79XS. It was too late. It was still too late. How could they not know that the giant purple fish was up to no good? They had gathered 32 peak leaders and a few hundred envoys from the 2 sacred areas, but they had still allowed Qin Nan to die. The Duanmu Mountain Lord, Peak Leader Zhang and Peak Leader Luo, in particular, felt like their hearts were being stabbed by a knife as they thought of this. The peerless genius that Tang Qingshan had finally found after 100 years. Qin Nan, whom Tang Qingshan had personally knelt before. The hope in their hearts. Because of their carelessness, Qin Nan was now on the brink of death. Explode. Qin Nan uttered a furious roar all of a sudden. The ecstasy on the big purple fish's face froze in an instant. From its body, a mysterious force quickly bloomed from every inch of its flesh. How could this be? The giant purple fish wore a terrified expression. At that instant, it finally understood Qin Nan's plan. But why would such an ancient existence allow Qin Nan to do as he pleased? Wasn't this guy only a half-martial emperor realm presence? How was he able to control the chaos chi? Bang! Before the giant purple fish could even react, every inch of its flesh and blood instantly exploded, causing it to turn into a ball of flames, turning it into a giant flaming fish. A cry of agony instantly pierced through the sky. Qin Nan had already activated his divine sense to move the 9-lined golden core out of the giant purple fish's body while it was still screaming. At that instant, the peak leaders were utterly confused. What the hell was going on? The Duanmu Mountain Lord and the others were overjoyed. Read the whole thing. They did not care what had happened. All they knew was that Qin Nan was still alive, and his 9-lined golden core had not been swallowed by that damned purple fish. Bastard die. 32 peak leaders, including Peak Leader Duanmu and the others, stood in the air with expressionless faces. A great pressure was emitted from their bodies, locking onto the giant purple fish's figure. However, right at this moment, a sudden change occurred. The copper mirror in Qin Nan's divine sense and the mysterious existence that it was related to seemed to have broken through some sort of forbidding aura as the icy female voice appeared once again. How dare you mere ants try to steal my possession? Qin Nan, this emperor will bestow upon you an opportunity to help you become a supreme martial king. From now on, you will owe me a favor. Qin Nan was stunned. Boom. Before the 32 peak leaders could unleash their deadly attacks, a wisp of ancient energy suddenly shot out from Qin Nan's mind and struck the giant purple fish. How is this possible? This is the power of a forbidding aura. How could the power of a forbidding aura exist? Could it be that someone has broken the ancient curse of the Kanglan continent? The giant purple fish uttered a cry of agony, which was more like a cry of fear than a cry of agony. However, before it could finish its words, its entire body started to turn illusory. It was as if its physical body had been shattered, and only its soul remained. Qin Nan, devour its soul, the icy female voice said. Devour it? Qin Nan was startled for a moment, before he swiftly reacted and controlled his 9-lined golden core to dash toward the soul of the giant purple fish. The giant purple fish was formed by 999 Tao-seeking fish jumping into the Dragon Gate. It was a mystical being of the heavens and earth, containing endless secrets. If it was devoured by the 9-lined golden core, it would surely bring unimaginable changes to the 9-lined golden core. Whoosh! As the 9-lined golden core dashed forward, the soul of the giant purple fish was instantly devoured by it, causing the 9 golden lines on the inner core to twist and turn into a golden dragon coiling on top of the inner core. When the nine-lined golden core met the purple fish, the two combined to form a true dragon. Roar! A shocking roar of a dragon burst out from the dragon-lined golden core, shaking the heavens and earth. The 32 peak leaders were stunned. Even with their cultivation, they were clueless as to what had just happened. They only knew that Qin Nan seemed to have used some kind of precious artifact to shatter the flesh of the giant purple fish and merge it with its inner core. This, the shoulders of the Duanmu Mountain Lord and the others shuddered upon seeing this. A nine-lined golden core was the limit of Jiu, which was known as the Supreme. What kind of inner core was this dragon-lined golden core? Bang! As soon as the dragon-lined golden core was formed, a boundless power burst out from it, which turned into a golden ray that collided with the calamity of the atavistic cultivator. The calamity was instantly shattered into pieces, destroying it in an instant. Roar! As soon as the calamity was destroyed, Qin Nan could feel the world before him becoming clearer. His dragon-lined golden core uttered a roar into the sky as if it was excited, locking onto the stormy cloud of the tribulation. At that instant, the force of the heavens and earth was ferocious, causing the 666 zhang stormy cloud of the tribulation to grow rapidly. 700 zhang, 800 zhang, 900 zhang. The stormy cloud of the tribulation finally came to a stop after reaching 999 zhang. If one were to look down from the sky at this moment, one would notice that the arena was enveloped by an enormous dark cloud. Lightning surged within the dark cloud, and it emanated a boundless aura of destruction, causing it to seem like the end of the world had arrived. At that instant, the tribulation had yet to take place, but the peak leaders and the envoys could feel their hearts exploding, causing their minds to go blank. 999 zhang. 999 zhang. Such a powerful tribulation of the heavens and earth was unheard of, never seen before, never seen before. Bang! At that instant, the entire Qinglong mountain range began to tremble once again. Furthermore, within the mountain range, an incomparably powerful existence slowly opened its eyes. At that instant, the entire Qinglong sacred area experienced a rare occurrence. Who's there? Such a law-defying talent. The words caused the 16 mountains of the Qinglong sacred area to explode. Even the appearance of 999 Dao-seeking fish was not enough to catch his attention. However, as soon as the tribulation of 999 zhang arrived, he was personally alerted. He was the sacred leader of the Qinglong sacred area. Meanwhile, in the lower district in the Feiyang sacred area, deep inside the Feiyang sacred area, an ancient presence was also in a deep slumber. However, at that instant, the ancient presence fully opened his eyes, which emitted a godly glow that penetrated the boundless space. Such a genius has appeared in the lower district. The ancient presence rose from his seat. His awakening caused the entire Feiyang sacred area to tremble vigorously. He was the sacred leader of the Feiyang sacred area. Chapter 338. A Genius Remembering Love in 1 Second? Shua.net provides you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 340. The competition for the sacred leader. The gap between the Xiantian realm and the martial emperor realm was huge, just like the gap between a mortal and a martial artist. 79. Only after reaching the martial emperor realm would one be considered to have stepped into the martial world. At that instant, when the 999 zhang giant stormy cloud was formed, Qin Nan had become the only source of light on the entire Duanmu mountain. Tribulation, descend. Qin Nan's blood began to boil, as if a boundless battle intent was emitted from his body, which resonated with the dragon-lined golden core. Bang! 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 Within the 999 zhang tall dark clouds, countless bolts of purple lightning zigzagged downwards. It was as if a violent storm was descending, illuminating the entire battle arena with purple light. The dragon-lined golden core emitted a brilliant glow despite being struck by the thunderbolts, as if it was undergoing a baptism. Martial Emperor solidify! Qin Nan uttered a thunderous roar. The dragon-lined golden core rose into the sky under the thunderbolts and dashed forward, shattering the thunderbolts into pieces and landing on the 999 Zhang giant stormy cloud, shattering it into pieces. Whoosh! The force of the martial Emperor realm was emitted from the dragon-lined golden core like a whirlwind, which continued to rise until it reached its peak. Bang! 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 At that instant, Qin Nan's cultivation experienced a tremendous change. First layer Martial Emperor Realm. Second layer Martial Emperor Realm. Third layer Martial Emperor Realm. Qin Nan's cultivation finally came to a stop after reaching the 10th layer Martial Emperor Realm. Demonic art of heart calming and expelling. Qin Nan's divine sense skyrocketed, as the divine sense in his mind began to expand rapidly, which only came to a stop after reaching 999 zhang. At the same time, the demonic art of heart calming and expelling that he had been practicing emitted a pop sound, as if it had broken through the barrier and reached the perfect stage. Buzz! Behind Qin Nan's figure, countless illusionary figures of beasts appeared and merged into one, forming a giant bell that emitted a buzzing sound. Each chime was powerful enough to shatter the demons into pieces. My saber intent! Qin Nan uttered a roar. Advertisement. All of his will and determination had been placed in the Dragonmark Golden Core. Now that the Dragonmark Golden Core had successfully transcended the tribulation, it wasn't just his cultivation base that had undergone the baptism. Everything about him had broken through the barrier. Shush! A powerful saber intent was emitted from Qin Nan's body, resulting in a shocking force, which had improved from the arcane realm to the force accumulating realm. Force accumulating force? With a slash, Qin Nan's saber, left eye of the divine eye of God of Battle's eyes. The golden glow emitted from Qin Nan's left eye grew more ferocious, as if it had turned into a golden flame that flowed in the air. The left eye of the divine God of Battle was, after all, the extraordinary ability of the left eye of the divine God of Battle. It was not something that could be upgraded with a single inner core, but its ability to peek through the secrets of others had improved significantly. A love go shao sei ku self-will? Qin Nan's expression turned solemn. His blood began to emit a loud rumble in his body, which faintly formed a huge formation, forming the embryonic form of a unique bloodline. When Qin Nan had merged with his left eye, the force of the bloodline had already formed in his body. However, it was extremely weak, thus it was only beginning to take shape now. Although Qin Nan had no idea what the force of the bloodline represented, his battle intent was even more ferocious. The last step, the blazing sun golden armor body technique. Following a sizzling sound, Qin Nan's black hair was set ablaze, which turned into a golden flame. Following this, his neck, shoulders, chest, arms, etc. were engulfed in flames, causing him to look like a man on fire. Bang! Qin Nan's body was engulfed in flames, which transformed into a golden fiery armor covering his joints. Whoosh! A 5 zhang long golden fiery cloak suddenly extended from Qin Nan's back and drifted in the air, producing a whistling sound despite the absence of wind. Dang! It was as if the heavens and earth in the sky were letting out a loud boom in celebration. At that instant, Qin Nan, who was wearing the armor, emitting a brilliant saber intent, and the cloak flapping in the wind, wore a solemn expression. He emitted an imperious aura, as if a divine god of battle stood firmly between the heavens and earth. The peak leaders, the envoys, and the geniuses were dumbfounded upon seeing this. What kind of monster was this? His cultivation, martial skill, etc. had all reached the peak of the martial emperor realm. Besides that, the tremendous force and the solemn aura he emitted were more like a martial dominator than a martial emperor. However, they had no idea. When Qin Nan was leveling up to the martial emperor realm, he had encountered various difficulties, which had almost caused his martial emperor core to shatter. Following this, he had spent countless resources to refine his martial emperor core, and even merged it with the left eye of the divine god of battle and the chaos chi. As such, he was able to soar into the sky after successfully overcoming the tribulation. Golden core return. Qin Nan uttered a roar, causing the 9-lined golden core in midair to descend and merge with Qin Nan's body, causing Qin Nan's aura to be fully integrated. Qin Nan's face showed no sign of joy. Under the crowd's gaze, he sat down with his legs crossed, while the golden cloak covered in flames flapped in the wind. Now that he had successfully transcended the tribulation, his aura had improved tremendously. He had to stabilize his golden core, his flesh, and everything else first. Phew! As Qin Nan calmed his thoughts, his breathing echoed in the ears of the crowd like thunder. The heavens and earth fell into a dead silence. No one dared to make a sound. Even the peak leaders felt like their brains were not enough to comprehend the situation. A mere Xiantian realm cultivator leveling up to the martial emperor realm was able to stir such a great chaos. Who in the lower district could match him? Not even Tang Qingshan in the past. Robbing! A loud roar broke the silence of the Duanmu mountain all of a sudden. The one uttering the roar was none other than peak leader Luo. The peak leaders and the envoys of the Feiyang sacred area collected their thoughts at that instant. Their expressions were like that of a pack of ferocious wolves as they executed their attacks, aiming to bring Qin Nan's figure and the land within 5 li of him away. How bold! The Duanmu mountain lord became enraged. The same went for the peak leaders and the envoys of the Qinglong sacred area. At that instant, without any sign, a great battle took place. The battle this time was different than the previous one. Although no one would be killed, many of the peak leaders had already executed their trump cards, each of which was capable of shattering the heavens and earth. This was all because of Qin Nan. Are you kidding me? Being able to trigger 999 Dao-seeking fish, forming a dragon-lined golden core that surpassed the 9-lined golden core, and triggering a tribulation of 999 zhang. How could they let go of such a peerless genius? They must rob Qin Nan. If Qin Nan were to end up in any of the sacred areas, that sacred area would surely have a bright future if nothing went wrong. At that instant, the entire sky above the Duanmu mountain darkened all of a sudden, as an invisible aura was emitted from the area within a few thousand li. A voice that felt like it originated from the 9 heavens exploded. Qin Nan, the Feiyang sacred area wants him. Chapter 339. A Genius Remembers Love in 1 Second Divided by Little? Here's an interesting novel for you to read. C_T. Chapter 341. Who's the Winner? In the 2 sacred areas, the people were classified into disciples, custodians, envoys, peak leaders, and above them was the sacred leader. That's fast. The sacred leaders of the 2 sacred areas were considered the most powerful presence in the lower district. Their cultivations had surpassed the martial highness realm and reached the martial sacred realm. A martial highness realm expert could easily dominate a region in the upper district, while a martial sacred realm expert could easily be considered an authority in the upper district. Normally, the sacred leaders of the 2 sacred areas would be in seclusion, thus it was rare for them to show themselves. They would only show themselves when their sacred areas were in great danger, or when a new peak leader was born, etc. However, the sacred leader of the Feiyang sacred area had traveled over 100,000 li just for a new disciple. Shit! The faces of the Duanmu mountain lord, the peak leaders, and the envoys changed tremendously. They did not expect the sacred leader to show up in person. Greetings, sacred leader. Ha! Peak leader Luo and the others of the Feiyang sacred area burst out laughing. Now that their sacred leader is here, How could your Qinglong sacred area stand a chance against the Feiyang sacred area? In the sky above the Duanmu mountain, a magnificent figure with a blurry face stood there. Although he was not emitting any aura, his presence alone was enough to suppress the 36 peak leaders. Love Go Little Say, W. Chu, the sacred leader of the Feiyang sacred area, reached out his left hand and grabbed in the direction of the dojo. In an instant, an enormous primordial hand covered the sky and covered the earth as it descended. It was actually going to seize the entire martial arena. F***K. The Duanmu mountain lord and the others blurted out curses with reddened faces. How shameless! The Feiyang sacred area was too shameless. Even the sacred leader was here just to compete for a genius. How the F***K were they going to compete for it? Were they going to watch Qin Nan being taken away? This kid is destined to be a member of the Qinglong sacred area. Sacred leader Feiyang, don't you think it's inappropriate for you to do that? At that instant, an aged voice could be heard. At this moment, the entire main peak of the Qinglong mountain range began to buzz and tremble. The giant hand that sacred leader Feiyang had unleashed was instantly shattered into pieces by an invisible force, causing it to cease to exist. Sacred Lord Blue Dragon, you actually came out of seclusion for a disciple. Sacred leader Feiyang's eyes turned cold. This short sentence caused the hearts of countless people to explode. The sacred Lord Blue Dragon. Now, even the sacred Lord Blue Dragon had appeared. In other words, the birth of a peerless genius like Qin Nan was something that even the two sacred leaders were fighting over. So what? This kid has an outstanding talent, who has an extraordinary future. He might even become the next sacred leader. The sacred Lord Blue Dragon's figure did not appear, but his voice echoed among the 16 main peaks. Sacred leader Feiyang, I'll say it again. He is destined to be a member of the Qinglong sacred area. He will stay at the Qinglong sacred area. Destined? What do you mean by destined? Qinglong, this kid is mine for sure. Sacred leader Feiyang's eyes emitted two godly glows as if they had penetrated the entire Qinglong sacred area and locked onto the figure of the sacred Lord Blue Dragon. Following this, he raised his hand and lashed out. Let's fight. The sacred Lord Blue Dragon let out a calm smile. At that instant, the battle between the two sacred leaders instantly took place. However, the battle between the two sacred leaders had reached a whole new level. Even the peak leaders were unable to see the true path of the battle. The only thing they could sense was that the entire Qinglong mountain range was trembling slightly, while the space around them was twisting and exploding at times. The aura that was occasionally leaked out possessed a destructive force, causing the crowd to feel terrified. The peak leaders and the envoys of the two sacred areas stood still in their spots. The battle between the sacred leaders had begun. How many years had it been since the two sacred leaders had fought each other? Most importantly, the battle between the two sacred leaders was because of a disciple who had just ranked up to the peak martial emperor realm. At that instant, Qin Nan was completely unaware of the battle taking place around him. His mind was completely immersed in his body. After the baptism, the dragon-lined golden core had completely evolved. The will, etc. contained within it had transformed into the force of the martial emperor realm. Qin Nan guided the force inside the dragon-lined golden core to merge with his martial art, will, etc. into a whole, with no distinction between the two. Phew, it's finally stabilized. Once the trial is over, I'll have to spend some time to strengthen my cultivation and familiarize myself with my current strength. Qin Nan mumbled to himself as he slowly opened his eyes and glanced toward the sky. With a glimpse, he was utterly shocked. Now that his left eye of the divine god of battle had improved, he was able to detect two magnificent existences deep in the sky. Each of their attacks could easily shatter the Duanmu mountain. Qin Nan is awake. Look! He has come out from his seclusion. Haha, Qin Nan has joined our Feiyang's sacred area. The peak leaders and the envoys were aware of the change in Qin Nan's appearance after recovering from the shock. They immediately glanced toward him like wild beasts staring at a delicacy. Shush! Shush! Just at this moment, the shocking collision in the depths of the void completely disappeared, and two figures descended in unison. One of the figures was an old man with white hair wearing a blue robe and a kind face, who was none other than the sacred leader of the Qinglong sacred area. The other old man was wearing a purple golden robe, with a face as firm as a sword and a sharp gaze, who was none other than the sacred leader of the Feiyang sacred area. The two sacred leaders glanced at Qin Nan at the same time. Qin Nan, join our Feiyang sacred area. Sacred leader Feiyang was the first to speak. Once you join the Feiyang sacred area, I'll give you whatever you want. The simple sentence thoroughly displayed the imperious aura of a sacred leader. The Qinglong sacred area is your home, the sacred Lord Blue Dragon said with a smile. Although he did not make any promises, the crowd had a good impression of him. The eyes of the peak leaders and the envoys of the two sacred areas turned fiery, as if they could not wait to devour Qin Nan. Seniors, please wait for a moment. I have something to do. Qin Nan suddenly spoke and brought his fists together. The two sacred leaders and the crowd were startled. Wait, what were they waiting for? What was Qin Nan planning to do? Chapter 340. A Genius Remembers Love in 1 second/small? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 342. Choosing a course. All the peak leaders and emissaries were slightly stunned. They didn't expect Qin Nan to suddenly mention this matter. Immediately, they all looked at Jiang Bailan. 79. The two holy masters furrowed their brows. Only after the peak master told them the whole story through voice transmission did their brows relax. A faint smile appeared on their faces. This little guy is quite vengeful. Jiang Bailan's delicate face instantly flushed red, and her delicate body tensed up. She could clearly feel that all the leaders of the two holy lands were staring at her. All the geniuses present were also staring at her. This made her face burn like fire and her heart feel like it was being stabbed. What did Qin Nan mean by this? Was there a need to ask about the victory of this match? By asking so many questions, he had attracted the attention of the entire crowd. Wasn't he trying to humiliate her? As the saintess of the trading alliance, Jiang Bailan's patience was outstanding compared to ordinary people. However, at that instant she felt extremely humiliated, causing her to bite her lips as she was on the verge of bursting out in anger. She had to hold it in. He would definitely return this humiliation 100-fold in the future. Do you think I'm humiliating you? All of a sudden, Qin Nan said. His eyes seemed to have seen through Jiang Bailan's thoughts. Love go little say, Netku. Jiang Bailan was slightly stunned. How did he know? You must be suspecting me. How would I know what you're thinking? Qin Nan saw through her again and said with a faint smile, That's very simple. It's because you're too narrow-minded and self-centered. In order to get what you want, you'll do anything by hook or by crook. That's why you think I'm humiliating you. Of course, this is all nonsense that I made up. I mainly want to tell you. Qin Nan paused slightly and said, I'm really humiliating you. But Jiang Bailan felt as if she had been slapped in the face. Please go here to read a book. Qin Nan had said so much, as if he had seen through her thoughts, as if he was defending himself. But in the end, he suddenly changed the topic and admitted it. This kind of verbal skill was even more impactful to people. Qin Nan, Jiao Shi's eyes were spitting fire as his killing intent surged. He almost wanted to charge forward. What about me? Qin Nan's eyes turned cold. I don't want to talk to a brainless idiot like you. Scram. Did this Jiao Shi really think he was some big shot? If it wasn't for his brother Jiao Zhe, he would have crushed him to death. Jiao Shi, don't be rash. It was rare for Jiang Bailan to help Jiao Shi. She glared at Qin Nan and said, "Friend Qin Nan, thank you for teaching me a lesson today. This is your sword." Qin Nan initially planned to teach her a lesson, but when he saw the ancient sword, his left eye flickered with passion once again, diverting his attention. This sword, Qin Nan picked up the ancient sword, which emitted a buzzing sound in his hand, as if it were cheering. Jiao Zhe's eyes flickered with astonishment after seeing this, as the gloomy feeling in his heart vanished as he exclaimed, "A famous sword befits a hero. Cultivator Qin Nan, I've found this sword by chance in an ancient place. I'm relieved to see that it's related to you. It wasn't easy for me to obtain this sword through scheming. I'll definitely return this sword to you in the future. I'll remember the favor you've shown me by lending me this sword." Qin Nan straightened his back with a stern expression and brought his fists together toward Jiao Zhe with a solemn expression. The ancient sword was extremely important to him, but he was too embarrassed to say that he had acquired it through Jiang Bailan and the others. The surrounding geniuses were astounded seeing this. Who was Qin Nan now? The genius whom the two sacred areas were competing for. However, Qin Nan had thanked Jiao Zhe in such a serious manner after acquiring the ancient sword, and even owed him a favor. It was unnecessary for him to do such a thing, but he had done it anyway. This only served to prove that Qin Nan was a righteous person who was able to distinguish between kindness and hatred, and would never bully others with his identity. This caused the geniuses who were initially displeased with Qin Nan to be startled. Did that mean that Qin Nan was in the wrong between Qin Nan and Jiang Bailan? Of course not. "Brother Qin, you're being too serious," Jiao Zhe immediately replied with a bow. Qin Nan let out a smile. He did have a good impression of Jiao Zhe. If they were fated to meet, it was possible for them to become friends. "I'll investigate the secrets of the ancient sword later. Let's make a decision first." Qin Nan mumbled to himself as he stored the ancient sword into his storage bag, before glancing toward the two sacred leaders. At that instant, the atmosphere between the peak leaders and the envoys intensified, as the two sacred areas stood opposite one another. Sacred leader Feiyang went straight to the point as he said, "Qin Nan, once you join our Feiyang sacred area, we'll give you whatever you want. We'll kill whoever you want. Besides, you can even become the prospective saint of our Feiyang sacred area. Once your cultivation is strong enough, you'll be able to participate in the battle of the saints." Hearing this, the crowd was startled. Both sacred areas had their own saint. The saints were the ones who would take over the sacred areas in the future. In order to become a saint, one would have to fulfill two requirements: the rank of their martial spirit and their talents, etc. However, Qin Nan was definitely qualified to be one of them. Sacred leader Feiyang did not stop there, as he continued to say, "Besides, I'm willing to accept you as my core disciple, and teach you everything I know." The peak leaders and the envoys were astounded once again. A sacred leader accepting a disciple. The two sacred leaders were both powerful martial sacred realm cultivators, thus they would not easily accept a disciple. Most importantly, sacred leader Feiyang had never accepted a disciple before, unlike the sacred Lord Blue Dragon, who had accepted Tang Qingshan, Duanmu Mountain, and peak leader Zhang as his disciples. At that instant, even the envoys glanced at Qin Nan with envy. They had been dreaming of having such an opportunity for their entire lives. The Duanmu Mountain Lord and his crew began to panic. Judging from sacred leader Feiyang's attitude, it seemed like he had no choice but to recruit Qin Nan. Why was the sacred Lord Blue Dragon not saying anything? "Master!" The Duanmu Mountain Lord could not help but blurt out. Don't panic." The sacred Lord Blue Dragon let out a smile and said in a friendly tone, "Sacred leader Feiyang's offer is indeed generous, but I'm afraid the Qinglong sacred area is unable to fulfill it. Qin Nan, once you join the Qinglong sacred area, we'll place you as a prospective saint too, but you'll have to fight for the rest. It won't change because of your identity." Sacred leader Feiyang's lips curled upward. It seemed like this time, Qin Nan would surely be joining the Feiyang sacred area. After all, they had offered a higher price than him. Qin Nan frowned slightly. Judging from the attitudes of the two sacred leaders, it seemed like the Feiyang sacred area was the better choice. However, the Longhu ancestor beast and Princess Miao Miao had both joined the Duanmu mountain without his permission, which gave him a headache. At that instant, the sacred Lord Blue Dragon's eyes became deep all of a sudden as he glanced at Qin Nan and said, "However, the Qinglong sacred area can help you solve your doubts. For example, the sword in your hand or your martial spirit." Chapter 341. Genius 1 second. Remember love divided by go divided by little? Sagnet, providing you with interesting novels to read. C_T. Chapter 343. Well done. Qin Nan was startled. Love go little say, W. Chu 79XS, the sword in his hand? His martial spirit? Everyone knew that the ancient sword in his hand was stained with the aura of the divine god of battle, which was why Qin Nan was able to sense it and set up a plan to acquire it. As for his divine battle spirit, it was indeed facing a problem. The divine battle spirit no longer needed pills, but something else in order to rank up. However, how did the sacred Lord Blue Dragon know about this? Without hesitation, Qin Nan unleashed his left eye of the divine god of battle and glanced at the sacred Lord Blue Dragon. However, he failed to discover anything from the glance. The aura of the sacred Lord Blue Dragon was like an ancient black hole, immeasurable, with no clue as to what it was. Last time, it was the copper mirror who knew that the divine battle spirit was not my martial spirit. However, even the copper mirror was clueless about the origin of the divine battle spirit. How did this sacred Lord Blue Dragon know about it? Besides, I've never unleashed my martial spirit. Qin Nan's figure tensed as his brain rapidly processed the information. Although he had the urge to question Qin Nan, judging from the current situation, there was no way the sacred Lord Blue Dragon would tell him anything. I'll join the Qinglong sacred area. Qin Nan pondered for a moment, but failed to discover anything. He had no choice but to follow the instructions of the sacred Lord Blue Dragon and join the Qinglong sacred area. He had to find out what the sacred Lord Blue Dragon knew, and why he knew about it. What? Sacred leader Feiyang was stunned. The peak leaders and the envoys of the Feiyang sacred area were stunned too. With such great benefits, Qin Nan had chosen to join the Qinglong sacred area. However, they soon realized that Qin Nan had made such a decision because of the words of the sacred Lord Blue Dragon, which forced Qin Nan to join the Qinglong sacred area. Qin Nan, what the sacred Lord Blue Dragon can give you, I can give you. What he can't give you, I can also give you. Sacred leader Feiyang said in a deep tone, you should think it through. Your decision might affect your future, even if you are a genius. Qin Nan, think carefully. Peak Master Luo said anxiously. A genius like Qin Nan would only appear once in a few hundred years. He didn't want to miss this opportunity. Seniors, I have already made my decision. Qin Nan brought his fists together and said, thanks for your kindness, seniors. The Feiyang sacred area is not bad, but I'll still choose the Qinglong sacred area. This place suits me better. The Holy Lord Blue Dragon's expression was as amiable as usual, as if he had already expected this choice. The Duanmu Mountain Lord and the rest of the people of the Qinglong sacred area were overjoyed. They could easily predict that Qin Nan's arrival at the Qinglong sacred area would cause a great storm. The people of the Feiyang sacred area wore unpleasant looks on their faces. They were eager to have Qin Nan join them, but since Qin Nan had made his decision, they could not force him. Sacred leader Feiyang's eyes flickered with a sharp look as he said, Qin Nan, since you've made your decision, I won't interfere with your decision. However, from today onward, The young geniuses of our sacred leader Feiyang will treat you as their enemy. If there's a chance, the Feiyang sacred area will hunt you down with all our might. You have one last chance to change your mind. Although the two sacred areas had always been enemies, it was rare for a war to break out between them. After all, once a war broke out, both sides would suffer great losses. Who would have thought that a mere peak martial emperor realm cultivator like Qin Nan would be targeted by sacred leader Feiyang himself? That being said, it was reasonable. With Qin Nan's talent, if they were not able to recruit him, they would have to eliminate him. Otherwise, he would become a great enemy of the Feiyang sacred area in the future. The peak leaders of the Qinglong sacred area were infuriated. Very well. He even dared to threaten Qin Nan. Isn't he looking down on our Qinglong sacred area? However, before they could speak, Qin Nan burst out laughing all of a sudden. Great! That's great! Sacred leader Feiyang, I'm looking forward to the arrival of the geniuses of your Feiyang sacred area. I hope they won't let me down. Following this, a strong battle intent was fired into the sky from Qin Nan's body. Now that he had refined his dragon-lined golden core and reached the peak martial emperor realm, his muscles and bones were extremely thirsty. Geniuses! The more the merrier. Only then would he be thoroughly excited. Sacred leader Feiyang was startled. The peak leaders and the envoys of the Feiyang sacred area were stunned too. How could a mere peak martial emperor realm expert like Qin Nan burst out laughing after being threatened by the Feiyang sacred area? This guy was indeed AF*** King Maniac. If that's the case, there's no need to waste any more time. If you're able to become an expert under the attacks of our Feiyang sacred area, I'll be utterly impressed. Sacred leader Feiyang was surprisingly straightforward as he said, The rest of you, stay here and pick your geniuses. I'll be leaving first. After saying this, he took a step forward and tore the space apart, before disappearing into thin air. He was only here for Qin Nan. As for the other geniuses, they were not worthy enough for him to invite them personally. I'll join the Feiyang sacred area. To everyone's surprise, Jiang Bailan was the first one to step forward and speak. Great, great, great! Although the peak leaders of the Feiyang sacred area were disappointed that they did not manage to recruit Qin Nan, this Jiang Bailan was only slightly inferior to the imperial exterminator Tang Qingshan, thus they were more than willing to accept her. I'll join the Feiyang sacred area too. Jiao Shi blurted out. You. Jiao Zhe's expression changed slightly. His dream was to join the Qinglong sacred area, but to his surprise, Jiao Shi was still unable to change his mind. He had completely lost his mind for Jiang Bailan. Then I'll join the Feiyang sacred area too. Jiao Zhe let out a sigh in his heart and said with a stern expression. Haha, I'll join the Qinglong sacred area too. Sima Kong let out a cunning smile. With big brother Qin Nan protecting me, who would I be afraid of? In the selection, apart from Qin Nan, the top 4 geniuses had all been decided. The people of the 2 sacred areas did not show any sign of fighting one another. At most, they would argue with one another over the geniuses. However, since the Qinglong sacred area had acquired Qin Nan, most of the geniuses were given to the Feiyang sacred area. After all, the 2 sacred areas needed a balance. Sacred leader. After seeing this, Qin Nan raised his head and glanced at the sacred Lord Blue Dragon. Come with me. The sacred Lord Blue Dragon let out a smile as he flung his sleeves, causing Qin Nan's figure to disappear into thin air. However, no one knew that in the boundless sky above, there was a gigantic figure that had been observing everything that had happened since the start of the selection competition. No one was aware of its presence, not even the 2 sacred leaders. It was the Martial Serendipity Pavilion. Chapter 342. A Genius Remembering Love in 1 Second? Shua Net provides you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 344 The Mysterious Sacred Lord Blue Dragon. The Martial Serendipity Pavilion was a famous forbidden area in the lower district. Cotton candy access. Who would have thought that it would be observing the happenings of the Qinglong sacred area from the endless rift? Meanwhile, in the fifth layer of the Martial Serendipity Pavilion, an old man, a middle-aged man, and an old woman stood on the fifth layer. If Qin Nan were here, he would discover that they were the examiners of the first, second, and third rounds. A young man stood in front of the three of them. His face was blurry, and it was impossible to see through him. This kid, I knew he had great talent at first glance. The examiner of the first round let out a perverted smile. Such a pity, he's not a girl. Didn't he give you a great shock? The middle-aged man let out a hollow laugh. Are you seriously arguing over that? The old woman was left speechless. She glanced at the young man and said in a respectful tone, Master, we've been waiting for 1,000 years. Now that the rare existence of the Kanglan continent has finally appeared, what should we do? Should we give him a hand? After all, the reward we gave him for passing the trial of the Martial Serendipity Pavilion was too little. Reward? Although the smile on the young man's face could not be seen clearly, one could tell that he was smiling as he said, The one arcane realm stone we gave him was more than enough for him. The best way to give something to someone is to see what they lack and what you give them. As for helping him, he doesn't need our help for now. All we need to do is to wait for him to grow stronger. I'm sure that in the future, when he grows stronger, he will surely attract the attention of the people on the other side. Before that, we only have one mission, which is to conceal the heavenly fortune so that the people on the other side won't find out about it, giving him time to grow stronger. Acknowledged. The three examiners replied in a dull tone. Read the whole thing. The young man glanced into the sky and let out a sigh. A cultivator can only cultivate by communicating with the heavens and earth with his martial spirit. The Kanglan continent is heartless. The great Tao is heartless. Following his sigh, the figure of the Martial Serendipity Pavilion slowly disappeared from the sky. No one was aware of it. The sacred Lord Blue Dragon was already a martial saint. The power he possessed surpassed Qin Nan's understanding. It was not something Qin Nan could understand at all. Qin Nan felt his breathing stagnate, and in the next moment, he was already in another place. This was a house with a radius of several hundred feet. The house was clean, simple, and tidy. There were some strange flowers planted in the house. They were gorgeous and had a mysterious aura. What was even more noteworthy was that in the middle of the flowers, there was a stone table. The surface of the stone table was like clear water. The light on the surface of the stone table was intertwined to form a chessboard. Sacred Lord Blue Dragon, I want to know what you know. Who are you? Qin Nan was not interested in these things at all and asked directly. The matter of his martial spirit was extremely important, and he did not want it to be exposed. I can't tell you for now. The Sacred Lord Blue Dragon said in a calm tone, because your current cultivation is not strong enough. I can only tell you when your cultivation is at least at the peak of the martial ancestor realm. Can't tell? Qin Nan's eyes turned cold. You think you can fool me just because you're a martial sacred realm expert? The Sacred Lord Blue Dragon let out a friendly smile and ignored Qin Nan's anger as he said, Don't be impatient, stay calm. Although I can't tell you everything, I can tell you one thing. I don't have any bad intentions toward you. Instead, you should trust me. I'm afraid I'm the one who treats you the best in this world. The one who treats me the best? Qin Nan could not help but burst out laughing. This Sacred Lord Blue Dragon had a mysterious background. He knew his secrets, but did not tell him. And now he was telling him that he did not have any bad intentions toward him, and was the one who treats him the best. Was this a joke? They had only just met today. You don't believe me? The Sacred Lord Blue Dragon let out a calm smile and said, No one would believe the words of a person they just met. However, you should trust your martial spirit. After hearing this, Qin Nan's expression changed greatly. 10 green rays flickered behind him, as the divine battle spirit over 10 zhang tall rose from the ground and stood firmly between the heavens and earth. He had not activated the divine battle spirit before. Why would the divine battle spirit appear all of a sudden after hearing the words of the sacred Lord Blue Dragon? Before Qin Nan could ponder further, a strange feeling arose in his heart. It was as if the divine battle spirit was telling him that the sacred Lord Blue Dragon would not harm him. This, Qin Nan was stunned. Why would the divine battle spirit do this? Who exactly was the sacred Lord Blue Dragon? Why was it acquainted with the sacred Lord Blue Dragon? At that instant, countless questions echoed in Qin Nan's heart like a sudden clap of thunder. The sacred Lord Blue Dragon wore a thoughtful look as he said, "Qin Nan, don't overthink it now. However, the divine battle spirit and I were somehow related in the past, thus I know its existence. It knows me too. Either way, come find me when you've reached the peak of the martial ancestor realm, and I'll tell you everything." Qin Nan took a deep breath and forced himself to calm down. There were too many questions. If the sacred Lord Blue Dragon was unwilling to tell him, there was nothing he could do with his cultivation. However, Qin Nan's gaze toward the sacred Lord Blue Dragon calmed down. He had no idea what the relationship between the sacred Lord Blue Dragon and the divine battle spirit was, but he could not deny that since the divine battle spirit had acknowledged the sacred Lord Blue Dragon, it meant that this sacred Lord Blue Dragon was not hostile toward him. Otherwise, how could he be acknowledged by the divine god of battle? The sacred Lord Blue Dragon continued, "Qin Nan, I hope you will work hard at the Qinglong sacred area. Don't let Tang Qingshan down in 3 years' time." The Imperial Exterminator? Qin Nan was startled. The sacred Lord Blue Dragon said in a soft tone, "Previously, I had 4 disciples and a foster daughter. Although the rank of Tang Qingshan's martial spirit was not the highest, he had a unique talent. His future should be in the upper district. Unfortunately, after the incident, Tang Qingshan was unable to recover from it. Actually, he should know that I no longer blame him." Qin Nan nodded in silence. He did not say anything. The Imperial Exterminator Tang Qingshan had done him a great favor, thus he would definitely fulfill his promise. However, Qin Nan felt strange facing the sacred Lord Blue Dragon. It was as if someone had suddenly appeared out of nowhere, and this person was somehow related to his martial spirit. "Senior, you mentioned that you would tell me the origin of this sword, and the reason why the divine battle spirit ranked up. Can you tell me now?" Qin Nan pondered for a moment. It did not matter who this sacred Lord Blue Dragon was, or the relationship between him and the divine battle spirit. His priority now was to find out what was required for the divine battle spirit to rank up. This is what the divine battle spirit needs. Chapter 343. A Genius Remembering Love in 1 Second? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 345. The troubles after becoming famous. The object was smaller than half the size of a palm. Although its shape was not round, it was shiny, as if it were formed by a drop of water. Access. Qin Nan used his left eye of the divine god of battle and discovered that the object contained a tremendous force of the heavens and earth, which greatly surpassed his understanding. "This is a primary stone," the sacred Lord Blue Dragon said. "The reason why many cultivators would head to the upper district after becoming stronger is because of this object. I won't explain its exact function, especially since the upper district has sealed off the lower district, preventing it from entering the lower district. As such, it's extremely valuable in the lower district." A primary stone? Qin Nan instinctively reached out his hand to take it, but the sacred Lord Blue Dragon retrieved the primary stone with a flip of his hand and said with a smile, "Qin Nan, this primary stone is extremely valuable. You won't be able to buy it with money. You'll have to rely on yourself to get it. Qin Nan's mind darkened. Just a moment ago, this sacred Lord Blue Dragon had claimed that he was the person who treated him the best in this world. And now, he was not even willing to give him a single primary stone. However, Qin Nan let out a sigh of relief in his heart. His instincts had been right. He had learned the information regarding the divine battle spirit after arriving at the two sacred areas. As long as he knew the information, he would find a way to acquire it regardless of how expensive it was. Sacred Lord Blue Dragon, I'll be leaving first. Qin Nan turned around and prepared to leave. This sacred lord was too mysterious. Although Qin Nan knew that he would not harm him, he did not like the feeling of being exposed without knowing anything. Wait. The sacred Lord Blue Dragon's expression turned stern as he said in a dull tone, Qin Nan, I'll say it again. Now that you've reached the peak of the martial ancestor realm, I can tell you everything. I can tell you that all of this is a shocking secret. After saying this, the sacred Lord Blue Dragon took out a badge as a smile appeared on his wrinkled face. This badge is an identity badge that I've prepared for you. Its name is Duan Qing. I believe you will need another identity in the Qinglong sacred area. Huh! Qin Nan did not expect that after being so serious a moment ago, he would be given an identity token now. Why would he need another identity? Although he was confused, Qin Nan did not reject the offer. After receiving the badge, he hesitated for a moment and said, I believe it won't take me too long to reach the peak of the martial ancestor realm. Don't try to cheat me when the time comes. Of course. The sacred Lord Blue Dragon nodded and smiled. With a wave of his sleeve, a surge of energy enveloped Qin Nan and took him away. After Qin Nan's departure, the entire residence fell into a dead silence. The smile on the sacred Lord Blue Dragon's face slowly disappeared, as a hint of fatigue could be seen on his face. He no longer resembled a martial sacred realm expert, but an old man in his twilight years. Sigh. The sacred Lord Blue Dragon let out a sigh. The entire residence experienced a tremendous change. The blossoming flowers rapidly withered, as a deathly aura filled the entire residence. Time is running out. I hope you can reach the martial ancestor realm as soon as possible. That would be the best. The sacred Lord Blue Dragon mumbled to himself as his figure fell into a dead silence like a statue. Whoosh! Qin Nan's figure appeared on the dojo of the Duanmu Mountain. At that instant, almost 100 rays of light landed onto his figure. It appeared that while Qin Nan was being taken away by the sacred Lord Blue Dragon, the selection of the geniuses of the two sacred areas had come to an end. The people of the Feiyang sacred area had all left. As for the peak leaders and envoys of the Qinglong sacred area, they had all returned to their respective mountains with their geniuses. However, the envoys, custodians, and disciples of the Duanmu Mountain were overjoyed after knowing that Qin Nan had been recruited to join the Duanmu Mountain. They stood on the dojo and waited patiently. As soon as Qin Nan appeared, the envoys, custodians, and disciples of Duanmu Peak swarmed toward him and surrounded him in layers, leaving no gaps between them. Oh my, junior brother Qin Nan, you were right to choose the Duanmu Mountain. Ha ha ha, junior brother Qin Nan, if you have any problems in the future, feel free to look for me. Let's not talk about anything else. If those bastards of the Feiyang sacred area dare to harm you, I'll slap them to death with a single slap. Junior brother Qin Nan, we've prepared a feast for you tonight. Let's drink to our heart's content. In the Qinglong sacred area, there were main peaks. Each peak had its own peak leader, envoys, custodians, and disciples, who did not interfere with each other's business. Sometimes they would even compete with each other. Although Qin Nan's cultivation was only at the peak of the martial emperor realm, he was now the trump card of the Duanmu Mountain, the pride of the Duanmu Mountain. Although the envoys, custodians, and disciples of the Duanmu Mountain were jealous of Qin Nan's treatment, they clearly knew that they had to protect Qin Nan at all costs. If the same lineage were to compete with each other, how could it flourish? Thanks, senior brothers. Qin Nan's heart was filled with warmth as he bowed deeply toward the crowd. When he was in the Xianling clan, there was only endless internal strife. Apart from a few friends, most of the others were his enemies. He had never enjoyed such care from his senior brothers. The envoys, custodians, and disciples at the scene were even more satisfied. This junior brother of theirs was very sensible, and was not arrogant at all. That's enough, everyone settled down. The Duanmu Mountain Lord floated in midair, and said with a smile, Qin Nan, Longhu, Miao Miao, Pangqiu, you four have just joined the Duanmu Mountain, thus you might not know anything about the Qinglong sacred area. I'll let the people of the peak explain everything to you. Who among you is willing to take on this task? I'll do it. F***K F***K F***K, it has to be me. Damn it, piss off, it has to be me. Are you asking for a beating? The group of envoys, custodians, and disciples instantly turned noisy, as if they were about to fight. Qin Nan was slightly stunned seeing this. At that instant, he suddenly realized why the sacred Lord Blue Dragon had given him an identity badge. It was not a good idea to be too famous. If he were to be surrounded by so many people every day, how was he going to cultivate? Everyone, I'll do it this time. At that instant, a gentle voice could be heard. A young man with a face as white as jade wearing a blue robe and holding a horsetail whisk in his hand arrived while riding a white crane. His body was not emitting any aura, but it was filled with an indescribable sense of comfort, as if he was in the midst of a spring breeze. Any troubles would be resolved when they saw him again. Chapter 344. A Genius Remembering Love in 1 Second? Here's a fascinating novel for you to read. C_T. Chapter 346, The Romance of Longyang. The envoys, custodians, and disciples blurted out at the same time, before opening up a path for Qin Nan. Access. Qin Nan glimpsed at the person and was stunned. This young man was not even 30 years old, but he had reached the half-martial dominator realm. Although it was impossible to identify his martial spirit's rank, judging from his strength, it was at least 8th grade Xian ranked or above. Peak leader, and everyone else, as I've mentioned, I'll be leading junior brother Qin Nan. What do you think? The young man let out a soft laugh with a soothing voice. Not a problem. Go ahead, first senior brother. Aha, since first senior brother is here, I'll be leaving first. The envoys and custodians who were arguing with one another shook their heads without any hesitation. The Duanmu Mountain Lord raised his head slightly and said, Zhao Fang, you'll be leading the way. Remember to explain the situation of the 2 sacred areas to them in detail. Got it. Zhao Fang nodded his head with a smile, before he made an inviting gesture toward Qin Nan and his crew. Qin Nan and the others returned the gesture, before following behind Zhao Fang. The envoys and custodians at the scene stared at the departing figures of Qin Nan and his crew with a strange look in their eyes. The Qinglong sacred area has 16 main peaks, each with a different purpose. For example, our Duanmu Mountain focuses on cultivating one's mind. The Penglai Immortal Lotus Dojo, etc. are all used to improve one's mind. As for the other main peaks, they have different kinds of cultivation grounds, martial art successions, pill refinement, martial talent duels, casinos, treasure sales, etc. Everything is available. Our Qinglong sacred area is different from the Feiyang sacred area. The Feiyang sacred area focuses on battles, where the strong are respected, and the weak are treated as servants. The powerful geniuses are allowed to kill as they wish, but our Qinglong sacred area focuses on teaching everyone how to survive. Zhao Fang explained everything in detail, allowing Qin Nan and his crew to have a better understanding of the two sacred areas. Survival? When Qin Nan heard the last word, he could not help but reveal a hint of doubt. This was the first time he had heard of it. Yes, survival. Zhao Feng wore a pleasant smile as he said, "You can learn pill alchemy, weapon forging, etc. in the Qinglong sacred area. Why would you want to learn those?" The reason being that the sacred leaders of the Qinglong sacred area all believed that the purpose of a cultivator's cultivation was not only to kill and compete for fame and fortune, but also to survive. Advertisement. For example, if you've learned pill alchemy and reached a certain level, even if your cultivation isn't strong enough, you'll still be able to make a living in the upper district. Zhao Feng paused for a moment before he continued. Apart from that, you are allowed to challenge anyone to a duel in the Qinglong sacred area, but you are not allowed to kill, cripple your opponent. Otherwise, you will be severely punished. However, in the Qinglong sacred area, cheating, robbing, etc. are not against the rules of the sect. What? Robbing, swindling, and cheating don't violate the rules of the sect? Sima Kong widened his beady eyes. If that was the case, this Qinglong sacred area would definitely be his heaven. Interesting. Princess Miao Miao wore a grin on her face, while the Longhu ancestor beast let out a sinister chuckle. That's right. Zhao Fengshen's expression remained calm as he said, "The reason is that the sect wants the disciples to know how dangerous the martial world is. Even if you are an expert, you will still suffer if you're not careful enough." I see. Qin Nan's eyes flickered with excitement. The purpose of survival was to teach the martial artists various tricks in order to improve their ability to survive and be cautious. Although Qin Nan was filled with battle intent, it was his first time hearing such a thing, thus he was quite interested in it. "Alright, we're here. Longhu ancestor beast, Princess Miao Miao, Pang Qiu, this will be your future cave." Zhao Feng's footsteps came to a halt. Halfway up the mountain, there were 3 pitch-black holes. Weeds were growing at the entrance of the holes, and there was no spiritual energy at all. It looked extremely barren. What? The expressions of Princess Miao Miao and the others changed at the same time. You call this a cave? This was basically a cave, alright? Why would the Qinglong sacred area allow us to stay in such a place? Zhao Feng wore a serious expression as he said, "Ladies and gentlemen, regardless of who you are, you will be given a cave like this. The sacred area purposely arranged this to train your capabilities, so that you can modify your own cave." Train our capabilities? Modify our own? Where's Qin Nan's? The Longhu ancestor beast glanced at his surroundings and said. Qin Nan was confused too. It turned out that 2 li away from their cave residences was a small palace surrounded by qi and a forbidding aura, preventing anyone from peeking inside. The palace was surrounded by a faint white mist, giving it a misty appearance, as if it were a small mystical palace. What? The faces of Princess Miao Miao and the others instantly turned pale. Didn't they say to train their capabilities and modify themselves? Why was there such a huge difference between them? Although they were not as insane as Qin Nan, they were still 1 in a million. Please forgive me. Due to the threat from the Feiyang sacred area, it's necessary for us to arrange a good cave for junior brother Qin Nan, to prevent anyone from peeking at him and exposing his secret. Zhao Feng said in a serious tone, "Alright, let's not waste any more time. Take a look at these 3 scrolls, and you will learn more about the Qinglong sacred area." Zhao Feng threw the 3 scrolls onto the ground, before he grabbed Qin Nan's hand and left the place. At that instant, the faces of Princess Miao Miao and the others turned pale. Screw you! He's obviously being biased. After clenching their teeth, Princess Miao Miao and the others withheld their urge to beat Zhao Feng up, and proceeded to modify their cave with cold expressions. When Zhao Feng brought Qin Nan to the small palace, Qin Nan's eyes flickered with astonishment. The palace was set up with at least a few hundred forbidding auras, each of which was connected with one another, forming a deadly formation. Even a martial dominator realm expert would be killed on the spot if they tried to force their way in. Junior brother Qin Nan, as the prospective saint, it's only right for you to have this. Zhao Feng reached out his hand and placed it on Qin Nan's shoulder, before he said with a smile, however, the competition at the Qinglong sacred area is quite intense, so you shouldn't let your guard down. Thanks for senior brother's advice, Qin Nan said in a serious tone. This Zhao Feng had been taking good care of him throughout the journey, and had clearly explained the rules to him. Aya, why are you being so courteous with your senior brother? We're going to be a family from now on. Zhao Feng reached out his hand and pinched Qin Nan's shoulder. His face blushed slightly, as if he was being shy. Qin Nan was slightly startled. Why did this first senior brother behave like this all of a sudden? However, Qin Nan was aware of Zhao Feng's touch, and for some reason, he could feel goosebumps rising all over his body, causing him to take a step backward and bring his fists together. Thanks, senior brother. That's all for today, I'll head into the palace first. Be patient, this is the scroll of the Qinglong sacred area, everything inside it. Zhao Feng reached out his hand and handed a scroll to Qin Nan, as if he was trying to grab Qin Nan's hand. Qin Nan was aware of his intention, who quickly dodged it and took the scroll, before he asked, First senior brother, do you know where I can find primary stones at the Qinglong sacred area? Primary stones? Zhao Feng blinked his eyes as he spoke in a gentle tone. These things are quite precious, you can only exchange them at the Danxia mountain. I only have a few pieces after saving them up for a long time. Why don't I bring you to my palace, and I'll give you the primary stones? Oh. See you later, senior brother. Qin Nan did not want to stay any longer, as he activated the forbidding aura to seal off the entire palace. Zhao Feng stared with his eyes open wide, as his face turned red and blue. After a while, he stomped his foot and harumphed, Qin Nan, I'll get my hands on you. His appearance was nothing like the imperious aura of a first senior brother. It was more like a junior sister who had fallen in love, and was declaring her love. After entering the palace, Qin Nan let out a sigh of relief. His face turned incredibly pale, as he felt extremely disgusted. F***K. What kind of bullshit first senior brother is this? He's a pervert with a penchant for homosexual acts. Why would I be targeted by this pervert? Damn it, this asshole's cultivation is too high. I won't have the chance to teach him a lesson for now. I'll teach him a lesson once my cultivation improves. Qin Nan swung his hands to calm his thoughts, before he picked up the scroll and inspected it with his divine sense. At that instant, countless rays of light intertwined with one another in Qin Nan's mind, forming a huge map with the 16 main mountains and various words intertwined with one another, like a Qinglong staring down at everything. So, this is the Qinglong sacred area? Chapter 345. A Genius Remembers Love in 1 Second Divided by Small? Shua.net provides you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 347 City of Black Hands, Qinglong Ranking. The Cultivation Dojo of the Main Peak. A summary of all the robberies, scams, and brawls in the cities. The 9 Great Cultivation Sacred Areas. On the Qinglong map, countless information was listed behind each of the main peak. Qin Nan could easily read the information with a single thought. Please go here to read. For more information, visit www. Let's take a look first. Qin Nan inspected the map with his divine sense, and after a while, he had a rough understanding of the Qinglong sacred area. The Qinglong sacred area had a Qinglong ranking, which corresponded to the sacred leader, the peak leaders, the envoys, the custodians, and the disciples. Qin Nan's current cultivation of the peak martial emperor realm was only a disciple, but he was ranked first in the Qinglong disciple ranking. Besides that, there was also a prospective saint's ranking, but with his current cultivation, he was unable to access it. Besides that, each of the main peaks of the Qinglong sacred area had their own cultivation, martial arts, weapon forging, etc., each with their own unique functions. There were countless cultivation sacred areas. This allowed Qin Nan to learn that the most important thing in the Qinglong sacred area was the contribution points. With the contribution points, one could exchange them for pills, martial arts, mystical weapons, etc. at the Qinglong sacred area. It seems like the contribution points can be exchanged for primary stones? Qin Nan glanced at the scroll, and discovered that there were more than 10,000 items that could be exchanged for on the Qinglong scroll. After browsing for a while, he finally found the location of the primary stones. What? A primary stone can only be exchanged with contribution points? And 10,000 contribution points? Qin Nan's face instantly turned dull. According to his previous understanding, killing a peak martial emperor realm beast would only grant him half a contribution point, while killing a peak martial ancestor realm beast would only grant him 5 contribution points. Apart from reading the full text, there was also information about the various missions on the Azure Dragon Jade Slip. The highest standard mission only rewarded 1,000 contribution points. The quest was to kill a martial dominator realm bandit in the lower district. I wonder how long it will take for me to earn 10,000 contribution points. Qin Nan's expression was extremely ugly. He seriously suspected that the sacred Lord Blue Dragon was deliberately tricking him so that he could get the primordial stones. However, there are many ways to earn contribution points. Apart from completing missions, there are also robberies, scams, gambling, and selling transcendent artifacts. Qin Nan took a deep breath and calmed himself down. Now that things had come to this, even if the primordial stone was worth tens of thousands of gold taels, he had to find a way to get it. However, as Qin Nan learned more about it, his heart began to feel heavier. The contribution points awarded for the sale of the mystical weapons were extremely low. Each emperor weapon was only worth 3 contribution points, and the seller was not allowed to sell more than 3 emperor weapons at a time. Anything more than that would not be accepted. From the looks of it, there's no need to consider doing missions or exchanging items. Only gambling and robbery are left. Qin Nan let out a sigh of relief. The only thing that comforted him was that the Qinglong sacred area was supportive of gambling and robbery, and had even built a city specifically for it. After suppressing their cultivations, the cultivators would be able to enter the city and rob one another. The outcome of the battle would depend entirely on one's capabilities, thus it was a fair competition. Let's head to the city of Black Hands then. I must earn enough contribution points. Qin Nan immediately rose from his seat and saw Princess Miao Miao and the others renovating the cave, thus he left the place without saying anything. The city of Black Hands was not located at the Duanmu Mountain, but at the third-ranked Zhangyu Peak. Qin Nan was familiar with the peak leader of this Zhangyu Peak, who was one of the 3 peak leaders of the Xianling clan, whose full name was Zhangyu. However, to Qin Nan's surprise, as soon as he stepped out, countless cultivators of the Qinglong sacred area immediately reacted to his presence. Let's go. Qin Nan is here. What, let's go and take a look. I've been admiring him for a long time. I wonder what he looks like. These cultivators consisted of custodians and disciples, who were not qualified to participate in the incident that took place at the Duanmu Mountain. However, after hearing about the incident, they could not help but feel their blood boiling, as they had long been fascinated by Qin Nan. In less than 60 breaths' time, several disciples and custodians arrived at the main peak of the mountain. Qin Nan was never bothered by the gazes of others, but when he saw over 700 disciples following behind him, who were pointing their fingers at him while whispering among themselves, he could not help but frown. Why should I be bothered by the gazes of the people? Qin Nan calmed his thoughts. However, to his surprise, in just a few breaths' time, the crowd grew once again, which now consisted of over 1,000 people, resulting in a shocking sight. Hey, junior brother Qin Nan, slow down. Hee, junior brother Qin Nan, I've got something to discuss with you. Junior brother Qin Nan, can I have your autograph? In less than 3 breaths' time, Qin Nan was completely surrounded by the crowd, as his ears buzzed with the chatter of the crowd. F***K. Qin Nan's expression changed instantly. He was now fully aware of the huge disadvantages of being famous. How could he proceed to the city of Black Hands with so many people following him? I'm sorry, everyone. I'm busy today, so I'll be heading back to the palace first. Qin Nan brought his fists together toward the crowd with a smile, before his figure swiftly left the place with a kick, resulting in a great uproar among the crowd. The crowd followed behind him like a huge wave. Qin Nan had no choice but to return to the palace first. After waiting for 3 hours, the crowd at the entrance of the palace finally left. It's time to change my identity. With a thought, Qin Nan executed the mortal appearance-changing technique and transformed into a young man with a sallow complexion. It was impossible to tell his true appearance apart. The sacred Lord Blue Dragon has already predicted this. Qin Nan let out a sigh as he took the badge given to him by the sacred Lord Blue Dragon and hung it on his waist. After waiting for a while, he finally exited the palace without being followed by anyone else. A few tens of breaths later, Zhangyu Peak. The entire Zhangyu Peak was different than the Duanmu Mountain. Although it was also magnificent, it had a vague aura, as if it were a mystical mountain. On the dojo of the Zhangyu Peak was a huge pit of fire, filled with various kinds of black flames. Disciples and envoys continuously jumped into the pit of fire and sat down with their legs crossed to temper their bodies, resulting in endless cries of agony. I'll try again next time, to see if I can improve the blazing sun golden armor body technique. Qin Nan mumbled to himself as he quickened his pace and proceeded forward according to the map on the scroll. After a while, a huge black city appeared in front of him, crouching halfway up the mountain. Deafening cheers and screams could be heard coming from the city. It did not seem like a city of robberies at all. Qin Nan's eyes glistened as he slowly entered the city. No one had expected that the city of Black Hands, which had been established for hundreds of years, would face its first calamity today. Chapter 346. A Genius Remembers Love in 1 Second? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 348. King of Robbery. The entire city of Black Hands covered an area with a circumference of over 900 zhang, resulting in a magnificent sight. The entire city was made of some kind of atavistic black rock, giving it a mysterious aura. Advertisement. For more information visit www. At the entrance of the city there was a square. At this moment the square was filled with people. There were at least a few thousand people. Qin Nan glanced at them and was slightly stunned. Among these people, there was no lack of martial royal realm envoys. Greetings, senior and junior brothers. At that instant, a young man sprang into the sky from the center of the square and said with a loud voice, "I'm the city lord of the city of Black Hands, Zhengque. Today is the King of Robbing competition that is held once every month in the city of Black Hands." The rules of the grand robbery competition were very simple. There were a total of 10 matches. As long as the person ranked the highest, he or she would receive the title of King of Robbery. On top of that, you'll be rewarded with 1,000 contribution points. King of Robbery competition? Qin Nan, who was in the distance, was stunned for a moment before he was overjoyed. This King of Robbing competition was quite interesting. The winner of the competition was 1,000 contribution points. Qin Nan immediately had an idea. Without saying a word, He quickly went forward and blended into the crowd. However, this time, he did not cause any commotion. This time, I will definitely be the king of robbery. You! Do you know that the previous kings of robbing will be taking part in the competition? F***ck, it can't be. Qin Nan was in the crowd, listening to the discussions. In addition to some gossip, he also heard a lot about the rules of the king of robbery competition. Love go little saith ko. The rules of the king of robbing competition were very simple. After paying 20 contribution points, the participants would be able to exchange for a badge, allowing them to enter the city of Black Hands. In the city of Black Hands there was an atavistic black rock. Once it was activated, it would suppress the cultivations and martial skills of the people in the city to the Xiantian realm. Even a martial dominator realm expert would only be able to utilize the strength of the Xiantian realm. Full text reading. Apart from that, in the city of Black Hands, apart from the official sale, he was not allowed to use his mystical weapons. Interesting, very interesting. A faint flame was ignited in Qin Nan's eyes. If there were 1,000 participants in the king of robbing competition, if he were to rob all of them, it would be a total of 20,000 contribution points. Even if he didn't rob 1,000 people, he could still earn 2,000 contribution points by robbing 100 people. This method of earning contribution points was much faster than doing missions, selling artifacts, and so on. Let's exchange for tokens first, Qin Nan said to himself. Although he was penniless right now, it was fortunate that the sacred Lord Blue Dragon had given him a token. With this token, it should not be a problem for him to borrow 20 contribution points. Suddenly, a commotion broke out in the crowd. Look! He is the 8th king of robbery. F***ck. Isn't that Li Xiaoxue, ranked 5th on the Guardian ranking? She's here too? But she looks really fierce. So fierce, what's his name? Qin Nan's footsteps came to a halt as he glanced toward the source of the voice. He saw a woman with rough facial features and a few scars on her face. She was wearing a tattered armor and looked murderous. She was not flirtatious at all. Ranked 5th on the Guardian ranking, this Li Xiaoxue should not be underestimated. Qin Nan's eyes glistened. There were at least 3,000 Guardians in the Qinglong sacred area. To be able to be ranked in the top 5 among them, one's strength, martial spirit grade, and capabilities were definitely extraordinary. However, in the city of Black Hands, one's cultivation, etc. was restricted, thus Qin Nan was not afraid of facing her. The 8th king of robbery, I didn't expect you to be here. Great timing, I'm interested to see who's stronger between you and me. All of a sudden, a white-shirted young man appeared from the crowd with an elegant aura, with a hint of pride on his face. That's the 3rd king of robbery, Bai Xiao. This Bai Xiao is using a secret technique to conceal his identity. It's impossible to guess who he is. 2 former kings of robbery are here in this king of robbery competition. This is going to be interesting. The atmosphere of the place turned lively following the arrival of Bai Xiao. Even though there were quite a few disciples participating in the king of robbing competition, it was extremely rare for 2 of the former kings of robbing to appear at the same time. Everyone, apart from the 8th and 3rd kings of robbery, a legendary figure of our city of Black Hands, is here too. Suddenly, the city lord of the city of Black Hands, Zheng Kuo, yelled, "Let's welcome the 5th, 6th, and 7th legendary king of robbery, who has held the position for 3 consecutive times, Yu Luosha." The words served as a great shock to the crowd. Even Bai Xiao and Li Xiaoxue were startled, as if they were facing a formidable foe. The crowd of disciples was incredibly excited, as if they had just taken some kind of drug. F***K Yu Luosha is here. F***Ku, once I defeat her, I'll be able to reach the legendary level. Go to hell, Yu Luosha is my beloved woman. I must take part in this king of robbery competition. Haha, me too. I want to protect Yu Luosha. Even if I can't protect her, it would be my honor to be knocked out by her." Following the cheers of the disciples, a woman walked up to the stage gracefully. This woman was wearing a snow-white dress that was wrapped around her chest, revealing a large area of her fair skin. Her face was like a lotus flower that had just emerged from the water. Although her figure was not curvaceous, she had a different kind of charm. Every movement of hers was filled with a myriad of kinds of flirtatious emotions. The male disciples in the surroundings were all shouting and cheering. Qin Nan's expression stiffened, as he almost vomited a mouthful of blood. "So this is Yu Luosha? Isn't this King Zhaofang, the first senior brother of the Duanmu Mountain?" As Qin Nan's first senior brother Zhaofang's name was the same as the name of the patriarch of the Flying Sword sect, he had a strong impression of Zhaofang at first. However, when Zhaofang touched his hand and displayed a strange behavior, Qin Nan was even more terrified. It was obvious that Zhaofang had used some kind of transformation technique to turn himself into a woman. Although the others might not be able to tell, Qin Nan could easily tell that the aura inside Yu Luosha's body was the same as Zhaofang's. "Greetings, senior brothers and junior brothers, I'm Yu Luosha." Zhaofang's face blushed slightly as he said with a seductive tone, "I hope senior brothers and junior brothers will take good care of my daughter in this King of Robbery competition. I'm very excited and will surely repay your kindness in the future." After hearing the words, countless disciples were completely captivated, as they immediately agreed, resulting in a lively scene. Meanwhile, Bai Xiao and Li Xiaoxue harumphed. Their achievements were not comparable to Yu Luosha's, but the outcome of the King of Robbery competition remained to be seen. "Besides that, I have an important announcement to make," Zheng Kuo suddenly said in a mysterious tone. "Let me ask you all, who is the most famous genius in our two sacred areas?" "Qin Nan." "Of course it's Qin Nan." Many disciples immediately answered. Currently, even the saints of the two sacred areas were incomparable to Qin Nan's reputation. Zheng Kuo nodded his head in satisfaction and said in a prideful tone, "On behalf of the city of Black Hands, I've sent an invitation to junior brother Qin Nan. If I'm not mistaken, junior brother Qin Nan will most likely participate in the King of Robbery competition." Chapter 347. A Genius Remembering Love in 1 Second? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 349. Zhaofang's intention. Everyone knew that Qin Nan's current status was not to be underestimated. It would take a great deal of effort to invite him here. 79. This city lord of the city of Black Hands had managed to invite Qin Nan here? Impressive. That's really impressive. Is City Lord Zheng Kuo planning to turn this King of Robbing competition into a grand occasion? I'm going to take part. It would be great if I could stumble into junior brother Qin Nan and have a chance to spar with him. If the arrival of the three kings of robbing had excited the disciples, custodians, envoys, etc., the news of Qin Nan's participation in the competition had caused them to go crazy, causing them to sign up immediately. Zheng Kuo's lips curled upward after seeing this. Qin Nan's forehead was filled with black lines. Since when did he receive Zheng Kuo's invitation? Not at all. This Zheng Kuo had purposely said that, using the word highly likely to mislead the crowd. Even if the crowd were to discover that Qin Nan was not here, Zheng Kuo could still reject the invitation. Using such a method to increase the popularity of the competition, Qin Nan shook his head. He was planning to borrow some contribution points from Zheng Kuo using the Sacred Lord Blue Dragon's badge. Now that Zheng Kuo had used such a method, he no longer had any qualms about borrowing some contribution points. The registration area for the King of Robbing competition was located at the center of the square. As the place was crowded with people, Qin Nan waited for a moment before approaching it. Qin Nan did not approach the disciple in charge of the registration, but transmitted his voice to Zheng Kuo, City Lord. I don't have any contribution points on me. Can I borrow some from you? Zheng Kuo was currently extremely busy, thus he had no time to waste on this. Trying to borrow some contribution points without any contribution points? There was simply no way. However, Zheng Kuo glanced around casually. When he saw the token in Qin Nan's hand, his eyes widened in shock. You're the Holy Master's disciple? My name is Qin Nan. I hope that City Lord Zheng Kuo can lend me 100 contribution points. Qin Nan said indifferently. 100 contribution points? No problem, no problem. Although Zheng Kuo had no idea why Qin Nan did not have any contribution points with his identity, there was no way he would mistake the badge. He immediately said with a smile, I never thought our sacred leader would recruit another disciple. I've never heard of this before. Not long ago, the sacred leader took me in as a disciple. Qin Nan looked calm. Suddenly, he thought of something and asked, By the way, I have a question. What if the restrictive spells in the city can't suppress my cultivation? What should I do? Can't suppress your cultivation? Zheng Kuo burst out laughing all of a sudden as if he had just heard a funny joke. Instead of answering Qin Nan's question, his figure sprang into the air and faced the thousands of disciples at the square as he yelled, Fellow senior brothers and junior brothers, I've got something to announce. Through my invitation, another unexpected person will be taking part in the King of Robbing competition. This person is the disciple that our sacred Lord Blue Dragon has just recruited, Junior Brother Duan Qing. The words served as a great shock, which was on par with the news that Qin Nan was going to take part in the competition. Love go little Sag Wu, as everyone knew, since the sacred Lord Blue Dragon had recruited Tang Qingshan and the others as his disciples. Even the prospective saints of the Qinglong sacred area had not been recruited by the sacred Lord Blue Dragon. This Duan Qing was able to become the disciple of the sacred Lord Blue Dragon. His talent was surely unimaginable. F***K. City Lord Zheng Kuo is so generous this time, to be able to invite the disciple that the sacred Lord Blue Dragon has just recruited. Tisk Tsk. The three kings of Robbing, Junior Brother Qin Nan, and Junior Brother Duan Qing were all invited here. City Lord Zheng Kuo's capability is indeed impressive. The disciples were utterly impressed by Zheng Kuo's capabilities, as they glanced at Qin Nan. The kings of Robbing, Bai Xiao and Zhao Feng, who had transformed into the Jade Rakshasa, glanced at Qin Nan with judging gazes. Although they were unfamiliar with Duan Qing's background, they could not afford to underestimate him. This city lord Zheng Kuo. Qin Nan's eyes glistened. Previously, he had seen a hint of enjoyment on city lord Zheng Kuo's face after hearing the compliments from the crowd. He finally understood that this city lord Zheng Kuo was a show-off, a fan of receiving compliments, and a fan of his reputation. Just as Qin Nan had noticed, Zheng Kuo felt extremely pleasant in his heart, as he waved his hand and purposely said, Fellow brothers and sisters, this is Junior Brother Duan Qing's first time participating in the King of Robbing competition. He even asked me what would happen if the city of Black Hands failed to suppress his cultivation. I believe I don't have to answer this question, as everyone can tell him the answer. Ha! Junior Brother Duan Qing, don't even think about it. Even the envoys are suppressed, let alone you. Junior Brother Duan Qing, you have no idea. The city of Black Hands was built by peak leader Zhang Yu himself using the atavistic black rock. Once the entire city is activated, your martial skill, cultivation, martial intent, etc. will be suppressed. The crowd burst out laughing. Zheng Kuo nodded his head in satisfaction as he glanced at Qin Nan and said, Junior Brother Duan Qing, did you hear that? I'm not trying to brag, but if your cultivation is not suppressed, the city of Black Hands will not trouble you. Besides, it's not considered breaking the rules. Being able to break through the forbidding aura is your capability, and no one will object to it. Those words sounded incomparably sincere. However, Zheng Kuo's tone was filled with disapproval. So what if you're the new disciple of the sacred Lord Blue Dragon? Even a prospective saint whose cultivation had reached the martial dominator realm would be suppressed in the city of Black Hands too. Is that so? Thanks a lot. Qin Nan's expression turned cold. This Zheng Kuo had given him fake information just to save his face, and even exposed him in front of the crowd, causing him to be targeted by the three kings of robbing and countless others. He even showed off just a moment ago. Qin Nan was not fond of such a character. All right, everyone, please enter the city of Black Hands. Spread out and find a place to hide. In half the period it takes an incense to burn, the city of Black Hands will be activated to suppress your cultivation, and the competition will officially begin. Zheng Kuo was aware of Qin Nan's coldness, thus he uttered a yell without wasting any more time. As soon as the words were spoken, the crowd immediately charged toward the city of Black Hands like a surging tide. Li Xiaoxue and Bai Xiao both blended into the crowd. Only Zhao Feng's Jade Rakshasa remained in place for a while, not in a rush to make her move. Instead, she approached Qin Nan with a smile and said in a gentle tone, "Junior brother Duan Qing, I'm Jade Rakshasa. Is it possible for junior brother Duan Qing to form an alliance with me later? If it were any other disciple, they would only think that this Jade Rakshasa's smile was like a flower, attracting one's attention like a whirlpool. However, Qin Nan was different. He already knew that this Jade Rakshasa was actually Zhao Feng's disguise, thus he could feel goosebumps all over his body after witnessing her teasing. Piss off! Qin Nan uttered without mercy and left the place swiftly. The Jade Rakshasa was stunned. Or rather, Zhao Feng was stunned. He was extremely confident in his female appearance. Even if the others were not bewitched by him, they would not treat him with such an attitude. Humph, such a naughty little wild horse. If it weren't for the fact that I'm interested in Qin Nan, that wild horse, I would surely bully you. Zhao Feng harumphed coldly, before his eyes were engulfed in flames as he said, "Junior brother Qin Nan, you should wait for your senior brother. Once your senior brother has earned enough contribution points, I'll buy the forbidden medicine that can bewitch people, and I'll surely treat you well." Chapter 348. A Genius Remembering Love in 1 Second? Shua.net provides you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 350 Total Annihilation, City Lord. There are a total of 1,364 participants in the King of Robbing competition. A disciple ran up to Zheng Kuo and said, "Read the full article. That's fast." "That many?" Zheng Kuo's face was filled with joy. Apart from the surprise, he was extremely pleased with his outstanding intelligence. Li Xiaoxue, Bai Xiao, and the legendary king of robbing, Yu Luosha, were all invited by him using his contribution points. He then used a little trick to mislead the others into thinking that Qin Nan was going to take part in the king of robbing competition. Furthermore, he was lucky enough to stumble into Duan Qing, whom the sacred Lord Blue Dragon had just recruited as his disciple, thus he purposely used him to promote the competition. All these tricks were used to excite the other disciples, to make them feel that the king of robbing competition was extremely grand. That Duan Qing is so ignorant, to be satisfied with a mere 100 contribution points. If I knew this would happen, I wouldn't have spent a few hundred contribution points to invite the other kings of robbing here. Zheng Kuo was slightly disappointed. If the other kings of robbing were as dumb as Duan Qing, he would have made a great profit. Meanwhile, in the city of Black Hands, all the cultivators entered the place and unleashed their divine sense to find a place to hide. Qin Nan arrived at a secluded hut and sat down with his legs crossed to adjust his aura. As the period it took half an incense to burn was up, His eyes sprang open and glanced toward the center of the city of Black Hands. Activate the formation and suppress your cultivations. The first round of the King of Robbing competition begins now. Zheng Kuo floated in midair and uttered a roar. Behind him, a total of 20 martial Emperor Realm custodians performed hand seals to establish a formation and directed their auras into the city of Black Hands. A love go shao se kubinenji. The city of Black Hands, which covered an area of over 900 zhang, began to emit a loud explosion. Inside the city, an atavistic formation was activated at a rapid pace. Following the activation of the formation, an invisible force was emitted from the city and suppressed the crowd. Full-text reading Qin Nan's expression changed slightly. His blood, body, divine sense and inner core were all suppressed by an invisible force, which was about to seal his cultivation completely. Is there no way to break through this restriction? A cold grin appeared on Qin Nan's face as he uttered a roar, break. The dragon-lined golden core in Qin Nan's dantian emitted a brilliant glow while emitting the roar of a dragon, which collided with the invisible sealing force and shattered it instantly, causing his peak martial Emperor Realm cultivation to remain unchanged. Qin Nan had long expected this. Back then, his 9-vein golden core was already heaven-defying. After that, he merged with the soul of the giant purple fish and formed a dragon-vein golden core, which was already extraordinary. Although the forbidding aura of the Black Water City was powerful enough to suppress a martial dominator realm cultivator, it could not suppress his dragon-lined golden core. Look at the others. Qin Nan's left eye emitted a golden glow as he scanned his surroundings. Some of the martial dominator realm experts that he was familiar with, including Li Xiaoxue Bai Xiao and that transvestite Xiaofang, had their cultivations suppressed to the peak Xiantian realm. Zheng Kuo, according to what you said, breaking through the restriction of the Black Water City is not considered breaking the rules. Don't blame me for what I'm about to do. Qin Nan's eyes flickered with excitement. His cultivation was at the peak martial Emperor realm, while the others were suppressed to the peak Xiantian realm. It was like placing a tiger king among a flock of sheep. Even if there were thousands of sheep, they would still end up as a feast for the tiger king. Time to hunt. With a flicker, Qin Nan's figure swaggered around the streets of the Black Water City. At that instant, the entire Black Water City was immersed in the cries of battle, as a series of battles took place instantly. Fight. Eat this. Stay down. Qin Nan was like a ferocious tiger descending from the mountain as he walked on the streets of the Black Water City. Regardless of whether it was the envoys or the custodians, he would knock them out with a single punch. Luckily, he had purposely held back his punches. Otherwise, the punches would have resulted in their death. In just a brief moment, a total of 20 cultivators had been knocked out by Qin Nan with a single punch, and their badges were taken away, resulting in a huge commotion. 400 contribution points in such a short period of time. Qin Nan became even more excited. At this rate, he could easily earn a few thousand contribution points in the first round of the trial. Whoosh! A piercing sound could be heard as a watery screen appeared in the sky above the Black Water City. On the screen, 30 names could be seen, which were constantly changing. Each time the names changed, the number of contribution points behind the names would be different. With 400 contribution points, Qin Nan was now ranked first. F*** Kmi. This Duan Qing is insane. It's only the beginning of the trial, and he has already defeated 20 people? As expected of the disciple recruited by the sacred Lord Blue Dragon, how powerful! A series of exclamations could be heard in the Black Water City. Qin Nan's 999 zhang divine sense had already covered the entire city. He was too lazy to be bothered by the exclamations. He immediately discovered a group of 10 cultivators and dashed toward them with a kick. The group consisted of 3 envoys and 7 custodians, but when they saw Qin Nan's arrival, their expressions changed tremendously. K me, it's Duan Qing. Let's split up and run for our lives. The group of 10 cultivators immediately scattered in all directions without hesitation. Trying to run away? Qin Nan stomped his foot on the ground, causing pebbles to fly into the air as he lashed out with a kick. The group of 10 cultivators who were fleeing in all directions heard the sound and turned their heads around, but before they could react, the pebbles struck their chests, causing them to cry out in pain. Qin Nan did not show any mercy, and under the astounded gazes of the 10 cultivators, he immediately looted the badges. K me. Duan Qing has 600 contribution points. He is 300 contribution points ahead of Yu Luosha. K me. The cultivators who were paying close attention to the changes of the watery screen were startled as they burst out cursing. Qin Nan did not stop there. With a kick, he locked onto another group of 30 cultivators and approached them. However, when the cultivators saw Qin Nan, they could not help but let out cries of agony. Duan Qing is here. Run. These cultivators were scared out of their wits, as if they had encountered a ferocious beast. Seriously? Qin Nan was left speechless. These cultivators were normally considered geniuses, but they were now as timid as mice. Didn't they think that they could team up against him? This won't do. After the incident at the square of the Black Water City, most of the cultivators would recognize me. If they were to see me, they would most likely flee for their lives. Qin Nan mumbled to himself. The king of robbing competition had 10 rounds in total. If he were to end it early, he should at least play a few more rounds in order to earn more contribution points. I'll change my identity. Qin Nan activated the mortal appearance-changing tome and transformed himself into a middle-aged bulky man. Qin Nan suddenly saw a change on the watery screen. It turned out that Bai Xiao and Li Xiaoxue had both accumulated over 300 contribution points, while that pervert Zhao Fang was even stronger, who had accumulated over 500 contribution points. That's great, a change of strategy, so I don't have to deal with them one by one. Chapter 349. A Genius Remembering Love in 1 Second? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 351. A Sea of Swoosh. He's not moving anymore. Phew, it seems like this Duan Qing is not that crazy after all. He has dropped to the 4th rank. The legendary king of robbing, Yu Luosha, is still the best, with over 800 points. In the city of Black Hands, apart from the sounds of battles taking place, there were many discussions taking place too. Advertisement. That's fast. The main reason was that Duan Qing's performance at the beginning was too insane, thus they could not help but pay attention to it. Now that Duan Qing had stopped, they finally let out sighs of relief, and began to plan their moves while executing their martial arts. Little did they know, Qin Nan was currently staring at the water screen in a residence. Let's wait a little longer. Qin Nan scanned the screen. The battle had just begun, thus there was no need for him to make his move yet. After half an hour, the sounds of battles taking place in the city of Black Hands had decreased significantly. Only a few tens of people were left out of the 1,000 participants. On the water screen, Zhao Fang was ranked first, with 1,800 points. Bai Xiao was ranked second, with 1,200 points. Li Xiaoxue was ranked third, with 1,100 points. Behind them, each of the experts only had a few hundred points. Qin Nan's ranking had dropped to the 17th rank. It's time to make my move. Qin Nan rose from the ground and with a kick, his figure disappeared with a flicker. On a certain street in the city of Black Hands, Bai Xiao stared at the 3 cultivators before him with a prideful expression and said, "You 3 are no match against me. I advise you to surrender now, so as to avoid dirtying my hands." "You." The three young men were infuriated, but they did not dare to say anything. It was true that they were no match against Bai Xiao. At that instant, a bulky man slowly approached them. Bai Xiao's eyes glistened. He was confident that he could win against three people, but it would be a different story if there were four of them. He then yelled, "Who are you?" "I, Bai Xiao, am here for business. Piss off at once, or else, don't blame me for showing no mercy." "Hee, an ant dares to be so arrogant?" The burly man stopped in his tracks and smiled faintly. "You actually called me an ant?" Bai Xiao's eyes flickered as he said, "In the Qinglong sacred area, no one dares to call me an ant. Today I'll show you what true strength is." As he spoke, young Master Bai's aura rose like a surging sea, roaring continuously. Not good. The expressions of the three young disciples changed drastically. They had long heard that young Master Bai had cultivated the oceanic whirlpool. Even if he was only at the peak of the Xiantian realm, he could summon an oceanic tide that could drown a person. It was extremely powerful. It was precisely because of this special technique that young Master Bai had few opponents in the city of Black Hand. However, before young Master Bai could finish his sentence and execute his oceanic whirlpool, a figure arrived with a whoosh and stood in front of young Master Bai. The strong wind produced by the figure struck young Master Bai's face, causing his cheeks to hurt. "You!" Child Bai widened his eyes. Why did this guy suddenly appear? Was he still at the peak of the Xiantian realm? Bang! His bewilderment came to an abrupt end as the burly man's fist landed on his face. His entire body was knocked to the ground, and he was sent crashing into the ground. "Shut up!" The bulky man picked up the badge and disappeared with a flicker, leaving the three young men with blank expressions on their faces. At that instant, there were only over 50 people left in the city of Black Hand. These people were all elites among the elites, who had experienced hundreds of battles, possessed countless trump cards, and were extremely experienced in scheming. In other words, the king of robbing competition had only just begun. F***Kami. Young Master Bai was killed. Gasp, who killed young Master Bai? Could it be Li Xiaoxue or Yu Luosha? It's not them, their points didn't change. F***Kami, it's Duan Qing. Duan Qing killed him. At that instant, the disqualified cultivators on the square of the city of Black Hands took a deep breath at the same time. Duan Qing killed young Master Bai? Could it be that Duan Qing did not make his move earlier because he was waiting for the final moment to eliminate them all at once? The remaining cultivators of the city of Black Hands were startled. It was obvious that Duan Qing was planning to make his move at the final moment. If they were to stumble into Duan Qing now, their losses would outweigh their gains. Humph! Such a naughty little wild horse, to be on the same level as me now. Zhao Feng could not help but harumph while staring at the screen. He was still feeling unpleasant after being rejected by Duan Qing with the word, "piss off." "I'm such a gorgeous beauty, why doesn't this Duan Qing know how to treat me well? I'll teach you a lesson when I see you again." Zhao Feng made up his mind. Following this, he suddenly saw a figure approaching from the corner of the street. His eyes flickered as he executed the tortoise-breathing pseudo-death technique to conceal his aura. Even his heart stopped beating, as if he were dead. This was his trump card. Even a martial Emperor realm expert would not be able to detect his presence when using this martial technique, not to mention that everyone's cultivation was suppressed to the peak of the Xiantian realm. This guy has at least 200 points on him. If I were to acquire his points and kill a few more, it would not be a problem for me to suppress Duan Qing. Zhao Feng's eyes stared at the approaching figure as he waited for the opportunity to strike. If I can acquire 2,000 points in 10 consecutive rounds, together with the 1,000 contribution points I'll be given, I'll be able to purchase the forbidden drug. With the drug, Qin Nan will be unable to control himself, and will fall in love with me uncontrollably. As he imagined the scene of Qin Nan falling in love with him and being possessed by him, the blood in his body began to boil rapidly. Although Zhao Feng was fond of men, he would not be interested in ordinary men. Therefore, when he saw Qin Nan's breakthrough to the martial emperor realm and the shocking scene, he was completely immersed in his love. Only such an imperious man was worthy of his love. For love. Zhao Feng uttered a roar as he saw the figure approaching him, causing his aura to burst out, which transformed into a killing blow aiming at the figure. However, when he saw the figure, his face was filled with astonishment. Duan Qing? This guy is Duan Qing? Duan Qing, take this! Zhao Feng was overjoyed after a brief moment of hesitation, as he lashed out with a powerful punch. He was extremely confident that even Duan Qing would not be able to resist the sudden attack. For love? After changing his strategy, Qin Nan had changed his appearance to Duan Qing's appearance. Since he had already been exposed, there was no need for him to hide it any longer. Besides, he had already noticed Zhao Feng's presence on his way here, but he did not say anything. Now, after seeing Zhao Feng's sneak attack and hearing his words, his face instantly turned pale. For love? Who the F***K is in love with you? I've already turned into Duan Qing, and you still don't want to forgive me? How bold! Qin Nan became enraged and lashed out a punch at Zhao Feng's face. Bang! Before Zhao Feng could let out a cry of agony, he could only feel an atavistic beast colliding with his face, causing his body to fall heavily onto the ground, resulting in a huge pit on the ground of the city of Black Hands. The tremendous pain instantly drowned him, causing him to lose consciousness. A huge explosion took place outside the city of Black Hand. What the F***K? F***K? What kind of monster is Duan Qing, to be able to knock out Jade Luosha? Gasp! Terrifying, absolutely terrifying! The eliminated disciples all sucked in a breath of cold air. That's Jade Luosha, coming first 3 times in a row, known as the legendary king of robbing. Could it be that this legend was about to be destroyed? That being said, many of the disciples were extremely furious. Jade Luosha is such a cute and adorable person, how could Duan Qing lay his hands on her? After seeing this, Zheng Kuo's eyes flickered slightly. Although this Duan Qing is not very knowledgeable, his cultivation is indeed impressive. As expected of the disciple of the sacred Lord Blue Dragon, his mind began to think rapidly. I should use Duan Qing's reputation to spread the news to attract more people. However, at that instant, bang, 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 a series of explosions could be heard continuously in the city of Black Hands, as if a series of heavenly thunders had just struck the place. The remaining dozens of names on the water screen floating above the city of Black Hands were like a pile of candles that were being blown away by a puff of air. They were extinguished one after another at a rapid pace. Li Xiaoxue was defeated. A certain disciple was defeated. A certain someone was defeated. In the blink of an eye, in less than 80 breaths' time, all the disciples were defeated. Only the 2 words Duan Qing emitted a blinding glow above the first rank. This, every single disciple who had sucked in a breath of cold air was stupefied. Even Zheng Kuo could not help but open his mouth wide after seeing this, and his jaw almost dropped to the ground. Chapter 350. A Genius Remembering Love in 1 Second? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 352, suppressed again. When one's cultivation was suppressed to the peak of the Xiantian realm, some of the more talented ones were able to face 3 opponents at the same time. Only a few insane experts were able to face 5 opponents at the same time. Please read the full article. For more information, please visit www. But now? In just over 80 breaths' time, He had defeated over 50 peak Xiantian realm cultivators, each of whom was extremely powerful. On average, each of them had only spent a little more than a breath's time. And this Duan Qing was AF*** King Peak Xiantian realm expert? Impossible! Damn it, even a fifth-layer Martial Emperor realm cultivator would not be able to do that. Could it be that this Duan Qing's cultivation was not suppressed? The cultivators swiftly collected their thoughts after recovering from the shock. Their eyes were filled with anger as they glanced at Zhengque. Zhengque's figure shuddered violently. Without a doubt, Duan Qing's cultivation was not suppressed. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to do such a thing. All of a sudden, Zhengque recalled how he had purposely acted smug when Duan Qing had asked him the question. Now that he thought about it, this naked reality was like a ruthless slap to his face, causing his cheeks to go numb and his ears to buzz. Wasn't he being smug? Wasn't he looking down on him? But now he had done it. Everyone, don't panic. Regarding this matter, our city of Black Hands will surely give everyone an explanation. Zhengque blurted out after collecting his thoughts. At that instant, he suddenly saw a figure walking out from the city, causing his eyes to flicker as he screamed, "Duan Qing! Explain to me what's going on here." After hearing the words, the crowd glanced toward Qin Nan at the same time. Dollar, cotton, flour candy talk, especially Zhao Feng and Bai Xiao. Zhao Feng had used his unique transformation technique to disguise himself as a woman, but now his nose was shattered and his face was swollen after being punched by Qin Nan, causing him to lose the appearance of a beautiful woman. He almost burst into tears after seeing his current appearance. Why did he have to hit her face? Could it be that he didn't know how to take care of Jade? As for young Master Bai, he was also extremely sullen. With his status, he was killed by a single punch, and was even called an ant. Explain. At this moment, Qin Nan was extremely happy, as he had defeated more than 1,300 people in the first round of the competition. He now had more than 26,000 contribution points, which could be exchanged for 2 primary stones. If he were to complete the remaining 9 matches, he would at least earn 230,000 contribution points, which would be enough to exchange for 23 primary stones. It was because of this that his face was filled with confusion when he heard Zhengque's question. Zhengque's expression hardened as he said, "You defeated everyone at the last moment. Obviously, your cultivation base wasn't suppressed to the peak of the Greater Heaven stage. What the hell is going on? Did you use some other means? What does it have to do with you whether I use my methods or not? Did I break the rules?" Qin Nan's face turned cold. Zhengque was left speechless. When he was being smug at the beginning, he did mention that his cultivation was not suppressed, thus he did not break the rules. Why are you wasting time? What is the city of Black Hands going to do? Is this king of robbing competition still allowed? The cultivators who had been defeated by Qin Nan could not help but become enraged. Normally, they would be considered as formidable experts in the outside world, but now they had been killed by a mere peak Martial Emperor realm presence, causing them to feel unpleasant. If Qin Nan was also at the peak of the Xiantian realm, their defeat would only be attributed to their lack of skills. But what was happening now? Zhengque's face turned pale. If this continued, it would be extremely disadvantageous for the city of Black Hands, and the king of robbing competition would not be able to continue. He immediately came up with a plan as he clenched his teeth and said, "Everyone, please listen to my explanation. It was definitely an accident. When the second round of the competition begins, we will fully activate the forbidding aura of the city of Black Hands and suppress everyone's cultivation to the body-tempering realm." After saying this, Zhengque glanced at Qin Nan and said with a fake smile, "Junior brother Duan Qing, it's the first time someone has managed to escape from the suppression of our city of Black Hands. Therefore, in the second round of the competition, we will fully activate the forbidding aura to suppress you first. Suppress me first? Qin Nan's eyes flickered coldly. This Zheng Kuo is quite interesting. Previously, he was being smug with his words, and now he is purposely picking on me. What gives him the right to do so? It doesn't matter. Qin Nan nodded his head without showing any expression. Suppressing me at full force, right? Bring it on. Zheng Kuo let out a sigh of relief. Luckily, this Duan Qing was smart enough. Otherwise, he would have no idea how he would end up today. He then turned his head around and said to the crowd with a smile, "Don't worry, the forbidding aura of the City of Black Hands will be perfectly fine. Duan Qing's cultivation will surely be suppressed to the peak of the body-tempering realm. Alright, those who are here to participate in the competition, register now. The second round will begin soon." "I'll do it. F***CK, I can't take this lying down. I must beat the crap out of Duan Qing. That's right. I must beat him up." In comparison to the first round, the number of cultivators registering for the second round increased instead of decreasing. They all had the same goal, to beat the crap out of Duan Qing. As a matter of fact, they did not hate Duan Qing at all. Most importantly, they were all martial dominators and martial ancestors in the past, and most of their cultivations were higher than Qin Nan's. They were willing to have their cultivations suppressed for the sake of fairness in the City of Black Hands. In the end, Duan Qing was not suppressed at all. With his cultivation, he was able to crush them all. They were not convinced by the result. Therefore, they had to fight. Fellow brothers and junior brothers, I have a suggestion. When the second round begins, the first thing we need to do is to eliminate Duan Qing. Bai Xiao said, "I'll form a team and lead it myself." "I'm in." "Not bad, Bai Xiao. Let's get our revenge on Duan Qing." Young Master Bai's words were immediately echoed by many disciples. Behind him stood more than 200 cultivators. Sob, sob, sob. Zhao Feng suddenly burst out crying while covering his face. His voice was heart-wrenching. "That pervert Duan Qing defeated me with his cultivation. Not only did he defeat me, he even tried to hit my face and ruin my appearance on purpose. Brothers and junior brothers, I can't take this lying down. I hope you can help me. That goddamn Duan Qing. Damn it, how dare he bully my goddess?" Zhao Feng's cries caused the hearts of many male cultivators to ache. Zhao Feng's appearance was extremely beautiful, but now, his face was in a mess. Although they could not bear to see it, their hatred toward Duan Qing grew even stronger after seeing such a beauty being ruined like that. In the blink of an eye, more than 800 people stood behind Zhao Feng, as if they were an army, resulting in a magnificent sight. Zheng Kuo let out a sigh of relief. His gaze toward Qin Nan was filled with gloating. "How dare you break through the forbidding aura of our City of Black Hands? Now that you're facing an army of 1,000 cultivators, the result will be miserable in the second round." Chapter 351. A Genius Remembering Love in 1 Second? Shua.net provides you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 353. A Giant Stick Buying Weapons. This was how the City of Black Hands earned its profit. 79 inches. The process of robbing, many of them were defeated by their opponents, thus causing them to be in a bad mood. As such, they could choose to spend their contribution points to buy weapons. The crowd suppressed their cultivations to the peak of the Xiantian realm. If they had a weapon in their hands, they would be able to turn the tide of the battle and get their revenge. The trial begins now. Zheng Kuo uttered a yell. As soon as he finished speaking, Qin Nan entered the City of Black Hands with a kick. He was not bothered by Zheng Kuo's suppression and the crowd's pursuit. If these guys were serious about dealing with him, he would not mind teaching them all a lesson. "That's fast. Humph, it seems like this guy is quite aware of his own strength. Hee, that's for sure. If his cultivation was suppressed to the body-tempering realm, how could he not be scared after offending so many of us? The cultivators behind by Xiao and Zhao Feng burst out laughing in a joyful manner. Guys, we can't let Qin Nan go. Let's go. Bai Xiao uttered a yell. Senior brothers, thank you for your help. We can't let him go, Zhao Feng said while clenching his teeth. He had to catch this Duan Qing and give him a few punches to his face. Under the lead of the two of them, the vast crowd surged into the city of Black Hands. As for the remaining cultivators, they exchanged glances with each other and made up their minds to stay out of this matter. When the time came, they might even be able to sit on top of the mountain and watch the tigers fight. Qin Nan arrived at a random residence. These cultivators were quite fair, as they did not use their cultivations to suppress him before the trial began. Activate the formation! Zhengque uttered a yell. This time, over 50 peak martial Emperor Realm cultivators were standing behind him, forming a huge formation, causing the city of Black Hands to shake vigorously. As the formation was activated, an invisible force could be felt flowing above the city of Black Hands. Reading in full. Initialization of the formation, 10,000 sealing black rocks. Out of nowhere, a formation flag appeared in Zhengque's hand. With a leap, he landed on the eye of the formation and waved the flag in his hand, causing the power of the formation to increase tremendously. It was as if the sky above the city of Black Hands was filled with a river of water, which poured downward all of a sudden, resulting in a mystical force suppressing the figures of the cultivators. At that instant, everyone's cultivation was suppressed to the body-tempering realm. Qin Nan observed everything with his left eye of the divine god of battle. He then glanced at the dragon-lined golden core in his body and discovered that it remained unaffected despite the tremendous pressure. 3 seals seal my cultivation. Zhengque's gaze locked onto Qin Nan's figure as he waved the formation flag. 3 rays of light were fired into the sky from the formation, which transformed into 3 giant seals that encapsulated Qin Nan's figure. No matter what tricks you have, you won't be able to break the seal. A prideful grin appeared on Zhengque's face. His attack was nothing ordinary, as it was formed by accumulating the force of the entire city of Black Hands. Even a half-martial highness realm cultivator would be suppressed within the range of the city of Black Hands, let alone Qin Nan. In the city of Black Hands, after seeing the 3 seals entering his body, Qin Nan squinted his eyes. These 3 seals were nothing ordinary. The first seal severed the connection between him and his martial spirit, the second seal sealed his flesh, and the third seal sealed his inner core. In other words, if Qin Nan were to be sealed, his cultivation would not even reach the peak of the body-tempering realm. It's a piece of cake to break free from the seal. I shall not break free from your seal for now. I shall go to the city and buy myself a weapon. Qin Nan rose from the ground. Now that he was surrounded by enemies and was being chased by over 1,000 cultivators, he showed no sign of fear. Instead, he was eager to try his luck. Therefore, he was not in a rush to unleash his cultivation. Otherwise, it would be a great loss if he ended up scaring his enemies away. As for buying a weapon, Qin Nan's main concern was that if he were to face a battle with over 1,000 cultivators, it would be easier for him to handle the situation with a weapon. The shops of various sizes in the city of Black Hands were now open. These shops were selling various kinds of high-quality weapons, which were not as good as mystical weapons, and were specifically designed for body-tempering realm cultivators. Qin Nan was quite disappointed after taking a look at the weapons. These weapons did not look special at all, and were extremely expensive. If he were to buy them, it would be a great loss for him. Qin Nan's footsteps halted all of a sudden, as he saw a huge weapon in one of the shops. The weapon was a giant stick. It was extremely huge, with a height of 5 zhang, which was equivalent to 9 Qin Nans stacked together. Furthermore, the tip of the stick was 1 zhang wide, which continued to shrink toward Wei Mo, until it was just big enough for him to hold with both hands. This giant stick doesn't look special, but it's made of some kind of ancient ore, causing it to be extremely heavy. Even an ordinary Xiantian realm cultivator would not be able to lift it up. Qin Nan's eyes flickered. Although the giant stick was useless, it was extremely rough. If he were to use it to beat up the body-tempering realm cultivators, it would be extremely effective. I'll buy it then. Qin Nan used the mortal appearance-changing technique to change his appearance. Under the blank gaze of the disciple in the shop, he spent 100 contribution points to buy the stick, and kept it in his storage bag. I hope you guys don't come looking for trouble. Qin Nan let out a hollow laugh as he entered a residence and sat down with his legs crossed. There was no need for him to do anything now. All he needed to do was to wait until the end of the battle and reap their contribution points. Meanwhile, the city of Black Hands was immersed in an uproar. What? Where's Duan Qing? Damn, I've already bought the weapon. Don't tell me he's hiding somewhere? Are you stupid? So many people are chasing after him, and his cultivation was sealed by City Lord Jing. Why wouldn't he hide somewhere? That's true, what should we do now? The cultivators were lost. They had initially come here to seek revenge, but now they could not even find him. How were they going to get their revenge? No way, I can't let him go so easily. Bai Xiao's face turned pale as he recalled the scene of him being looked down upon. He then turned toward Zhao Feng and asked, "You Luosha, you're an expert in ambushing and scheming. Do you have any ideas?" "How could you say that?" Zhao Feng screamed. "What do you mean by an expert in ambushing and scheming?" Was this Bai Xiao's brain kicked by a donkey? However, now was not the time to be fussy with him. He could not help but clench his teeth as he thought of Duan Qing, who was hiding somewhere. Not only did this Duan Qing ruin his face, he also had a huge amount of points on him. If he were to capture him, not only would he be able to get his revenge, he would also be able to earn back the points he had spent on the forbidden medicine, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. "I've got an idea, but I'll have to give it a try," Zhao Feng blurted out as he arrived at a weapons store. After a brief discussion with the disciple ran out of the store. Meanwhile, Zheng Kuo's eyes flickered after hearing the disciple's report. 3,000 contribution points? That's quite a price. In the city of Black Hands, as everyone's cultivation was restricted, they were unable to locate their enemies with their divine sense. Therefore, apart from selling weapons, the city of Black Hands would also sell the location information of their enemies. Although Duan Qing was the disciple of the sacred Lord Blue Dragon, Zheng Kuo was not too fond of him. Therefore, it would not be a problem for him to sell his location information to Yu Luosha. "It's a waste if I don't earn some money. You can't blame me for this. Oh Duan Qing, you're on your own now," Zheng Kuo mumbled to himself as he scanned the city of Black Hands with his divine sense. He immediately discovered Qin Nan's location, causing his lips to curl upward as he gave the disciple some instructions, who then swiftly returned to the city. Chapter 352. A Genius Remembers Love in 1 Second? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 354. A Violent Beating. Meanwhile, in the city of Black Hands. Accessed. Inside a courtyard, Qin Nan's eyes suddenly flashed with a divine light. Currently, his divine sense had a range of 999 zhang, allowing him to be extremely sensitive. He immediately sensed that someone had scanned the entire city of Black Hands with their divine sense, and even stopped for a brief moment on his figure. It would appear that this group of people are planning to attack. A cold smile appeared on Qin Nan's face. It seemed like spending 100 contribution points to buy that giant stick was the right choice. We have news of Duan Qing's location. Zhao Feng revealed a smile on his face. As expected of the Jade Rakshasa. I didn't expect you to be able to obtain Duan Qing's location. Bai Xiao was aware of the deal between Zhao Feng and Zheng Kuo, but he did not say anything as he yelled, "Brothers, what are we waiting for now that we have the location? Go! Duan Qing." Haha, when Duan Qing sees so many of us, he will probably wet his pants. Hee, even a peak Xiantian realm cultivator would flee from us, let alone Duan Qing. The cultivators began to yell in excitement. Go! Zhao Feng had just spent 3,000 contribution points, thus he was still feeling the pinch. He could not wait to teach Duan Qing a lesson, and rob all his contribution points along the way. Following this, the huge group led by Zhao Feng and Bai Xiao began to move in the city of Black Hands like a long dragon. The remaining 300-plus cultivators could feel their hearts racing after seeing this. Although the city of Black Hands had hosted countless king of robbing competitions, it was most likely the first time that such a powerful group of cultivators was gathered to deal with a single person. Go! Speed up! Don't let Duan Qing notice and let him escape. Hurry up, keep up. Hurry up and keep up. Zhao Feng and Bai Xiao stood at the front and yelled. Since they were leading such a large group, it was natural that they would cause a huge commotion. If Duan Qing was the first to notice them and escaped, it would be a great loss for them. It's in that courtyard. In just a few breaths' time, Zhao Feng saw the residence mentioned by the disciple. Her face was filled with joy as she yelled with her pleasant voice, Duan Qing, don't even think about running away. You have no chance of escaping today. Come out and surrender and accept your punishment. The cultivators uttered a great roar, resulting in a shocking sight. If it weren't for the fact that Zhao Feng and Bai Xiao had yet to make their move, they would most likely have charged forward and flattened the residence. Creak! The sound of a door being pushed open all of a sudden caused Zhao Feng and Bai Xiao to be startled. They could only see Qin Nan's figure walking out from the residence and glancing at the cultivators, before his gaze landed onto Zhao Feng and Bai Xiao's faces. He then said with a calm expression, I'll give you one last chance, get on your knees and piss off. Otherwise, don't blame me for not showing any mercy to my fellow disciples. At that instant, Zhao Feng and Bai Xiao were stunned. The crowd of cultivators was stunned too. Was this Duan Qing blind? Couldn't he see that there were so many of them? Zhao Feng and Bai Xiao were the sharpest among them. They immediately inspected Qin Nan's cultivation and discovered that his cultivation was indeed sealed at the body-tempering realm, causing them to laugh out of anger. How nice of this Duan Qing! Still daring to be so scornful when facing death. In Zhao Feng and Bai Xiao's eyes, Qin Nan was purposely saying that to scare them away. Did he really think that they were scared? Fellow senior and junior brothers, let's attack together. Zhao Feng and Bai Xiao uttered a roar almost at the same time. In the meantime, they stomped their feet and dashed toward Duan Qing. Damn it, he's too full of himself. How bold! Let's attack him together. The remaining cultivators collected their thoughts and became enraged as they charged forward. If one were to glance downward from above, they would see Zhao Feng and Bai Xiao leading the way, with at least 300 cultivators following behind them. The densely packed figures almost formed a black curtain that devoured Qin Nan's figure. If it were anyone else, their scalp would turn numb and their heart would tremble when facing so many cultivators with the same cultivation level. However, they were facing Qin Nan. You asked for it. Qin Nan burst out laughing and dashed toward Zhao Feng and Bai Xiao with a kick. The 3 seals placed by the town of Black Hands on his body were instantly shattered, as his aura of the martial emperor realm sprang into the sky like a giant beast being awakened from a deep slumber. Zhao Feng and Bai Xiao's expressions froze instantly. What was going on? Wasn't Duan Qing being suppressed? Why was his cultivation at the peak of the martial emperor realm now? While the two of them were puzzled, they suddenly saw a huge black stick flying towards their bodies. The size of the black stick and the force that erupted from the black stick was like an icicle that pierced into their hearts, causing their pupils to instantly shrink and their scalps to explode. K-me. Duan Qing had already prepared his weapon, and it was such a huge weapon. Normally, they would not be intimidated, but their cultivations were only at the peak of the body-tempering realm. Bang! Bang! Before the two could react, they could only feel as if a mountain had struck their bodies, causing Zhao Feng and Bai Xiao to let out cries of agony. Their figures were like arrows being fired from a bow, as they were sent flying over 10 meters away, crashing into the buildings of the city of Black Hands, resulting in a loud explosion. And you guys! Although Qin Nan was the owner of the divine battle spirit, which allowed him to battle against the heavens and the earth, and enjoyed battling against experts, it did feel good to be able to beat up a bunch of body-tempering realm cultivators with his peak martial emperor realm cultivation, causing his blood to boil. Qin Nan then uttered a roar as he swung the giant stick and charged toward the crowd of cultivators in a domineering manner. The cultivators who were initially filled with battle intent and dashed toward Qin Nan like ferocious tigers could feel their scalps turning numb after seeing the giant stick being swung in their direction. They were rooted to the spot, unable to move and react in time. Bang 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 bang. A series of slapping sounds could be heard, which felt like a series of explosions. Chapter 353. A Genius Remembers Love in 1 Second Divided by Small? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 355. Give Back My Love. Gasp! A series of cries of agony could be heard coming from the city of Black Hands like a raging storm. Please go here to read. That's fast. When the remaining 900-plus cultivators saw Qin Nan sweeping his way with the giant stick, they could feel a chill running down their spines and spreading to their entire bodies. K-me. Monster! Monster! Run for your lives! The 900-plus cultivators were instantly terrified by the violent scene before them. They no longer had the same attitude as before. There was only a single thought in their minds, which was to run for their lives as fast as they could. Trying to escape? Qin Nan wore a cold grin on his face. You guys are the ones who came knocking on my door, but I haven't had enough yet, and you guys are trying to escape? Beat them! Qin Nan stomped his foot on the ground, causing flames to burst out from under his feet. His figure dashed into the crowd like a tornado, while the black stick in his hand was raised high up in the air and swung downward at a rapid speed, resulting in countless illusionary figures. The Wenzhong long stick struck the heads of the cultivators without mercy. Bang 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 bang. Following a series of collisions, the figures of the cultivators were sent flying, as they let out shocking cries of agony. The main reason was that Qin Nan had purposely held back his strength, so that the strikes would only cause great pain to the cultivators, instead of inflicting any actual damage. Read the full article. As a result, the city of Black Hands was filled with countless cries of agony in just a few breaths' time, causing the entire city to tremble vigorously. Meanwhile, outside the city of Black Hands, Zheng Kuo, who had just received 3,000 contribution points, wore a satisfied expression on his face. However, before he could laugh out loud, a shocking cry of agony was heard all of a sudden, giving him a great shock. These people are so ruthless, how badly are they torturing Duan Qing? Zheng Kuo could not help but exclaim. However, he did not feel sorry at all. Who asked this Duan Qing to break through the forbidding aura of the city of Black Hands, causing him to lose face? Young people should be made to suffer a little more and be tempered properly. However, Zheng Kuo's expression started to change, as the cries of agony coming from the city of Black Hands had become extremely intense in just a few breaths' time. Furthermore, it did not sound like the cries of a single person, but hundreds of people were screaming at the same time. Shit! Zheng Kuo's expression changed. With a flicker, he arrived above the city of Black Hands and lowered his head to take a look. With one look, he was completely dumbfounded. On one of the streets of the city of Black Hands, Qin Nan was like an atavistic beast in the shape of a human, waving a huge iron cudgel and continuously lashing out at the heads of the cultivators, resulting in loud bangs that felt like Zheng Kuo's heart and head were being struck, causing his heart to be filled with coldness. If it were him, the pain of being struck on the head by the iron cudgel was unimaginable. Something's not right. Zheng Kuo's expression changed tremendously as he realized something was wrong. Wasn't Duan Qing's cultivation restricted? How could a mere body-tempering realm cultivator defeat so many cultivators? K me. Zheng Kuo's face turned pale after taking a glimpse. Peak Martial Emperor Realm. This Duan Qing's cultivation is still at the peak of the Martial Emperor Realm. What the hell is going on? I've personally activated the strongest formation of the City of Black Hands, but I still failed to suppress him? City Lord Jing, save us! Below him, a few hundred cultivators who were fleeing for their lives blurted out when they saw Zheng Kuo floating in midair, as if they had just found a life-saving straw. Zheng Kuo instinctively glanced at the group of cultivators. He had a rough impression of them, as they were usually envoys and custodians of the City of Black Hands. However, he did not expect such a group of people would be scared to death by a peak Martial Emperor Realm expert like homeless dogs. Duan Qing, stop it at once. Zheng Kuo immediately collected his thoughts and snapped furiously at Qin Nan below him. Stop it? City Lord Jing, the trial isn't over yet. Besides, didn't you mention that breaking the forbidding aura of the City of Black Hands is not considered breaking the rules? Qin Nan raised his head without showing any sign of fear. Zheng Kuo felt his throat choking, as if something was stuck in it, leaving him unable to say a single word. What should I do now? Stop the trial with force? Or defeat Duan Qing with brute force? Either way, the outcome would not be good. You guys were the ones yelling just then, right? As City Lord Zheng Kuo was feeling confused, Qin Nan's hollow voice could be heard. With a kick, his figure landed before the cultivators like a demon. Mercy! The hundreds of cultivators, who were usually awe-inspiring, were so scared that their faces turned pale. Just as they were about to open their mouths, their vision turned black. The giant stick appeared in front of them without any warning and struck them hard on the head. Buzz! The cultivators could only feel their heads being rammed by a monster, causing their brains to buzz. Their figures were instantly sent flying, as cries of agony could be heard. Bang bang bang! Another series of explosions occurred, and the hundreds of cultivators were all wiped out. At that instant, the thousands of people led by Zhao Fang and Bai Xiao were all knocked down by a giant stick. Their figures were scattered all around the street, causing the buildings in the City of Black Hands to be in a complete mess, resulting in an extremely violent scene. It's finally over. Qin Nan exhaled deeply, as his face was filled with a pleasant smile. This feels great. This time it felt so good. He had never thought that he would be able to defeat over 1,000 cultivators with ease. It felt like he had finally vented the anger in his heart, causing him to feel extremely pleasant. You! After seeing this, Zheng Kuo almost vomited blood, as his figure trembled violently. That's over 1,000 cultivators, including the envoys, custodians, and some with formidable backgrounds, but they were all knocked down by Qin Nan using the rules of the City of Black Hands? Duan Qing, do you have any idea what you've done? Zheng Kuo could no longer hold back his anger. Most of them are your senior brothers, and you dare to bully them just because of your cultivation. Before City Lord Zheng Kuo could finish his outburst, Qin Nan, who was in a pleasant mood, responded indifferently and carried the giant stick on his shoulder. He began to loot the bodies of the cultivators who had fallen to the ground, taking away their points for the second round. The only thing that made Qin Nan feel unsatisfied was that he had accidentally knocked the cultivators' bodies into all directions due to the excitement of slapping them with the stick. Therefore, he would have to put in some effort in order to claim all the points. Yu Zhengqua's lips trembled due to his anger. Since when had he, the city lord of the City of Black Hands, been disregarded by someone like this? At that instant, Qin Nan's movement came to a halt. It turned out that Zhao Feng's figure was lying in a huge pit a zhang away from him, causing his body to tremble continuously. You. When Zhao Feng saw Qin Nan, it was as if he had just seen his nemesis, causing him to be extremely furious. You shameless prick, you've taken everything from me, and you give me back my love, give me back my love. As soon as Zhao Feng finished speaking, Qin Nan's face darkened, as he raised the giant stick and smashed it at Zhao Feng's face. Bang! Chapter 354. Genius 1 Second. Remember love divided by little? Sagnet, providing you with interesting novels to read. C_T. Chapter 356. The Martial Ancestor Mystical Ground. I've finished looting everything. Qin Nan let out a calm smile. A love go little say, Chu access to the full text. Each round of the competition required 20 points, and since he had robbed everyone in the previous 2 rounds, he had accumulated a total of 52,000 points, which were enough to exchange for 5 primary stones. Zhengqua. Screw you! I think you're tired of living. A series of curses could be heard all of a sudden. It turned out that the cultivators had regained their senses after the excruciating pain, and were cursing at Zhengqua. They were completely enraged now. The City of Black Hands had to suppress their cultivations in order to have a fair battle. But now? Their cultivations were suppressed to the body-tempering realm, but Duan Qing was still at the peak of the martial emperor realm. How the F***k were they supposed to fight against him? This, Zhengqua's face turned pale white. He was aware of the severity of the situation. As long as Duan Qing was here, there was no way they could continue with the king of robbing competition. City Lord Zhengqua, what's going on? When is the 3rd round starting? Qin Nan calmly spoke, as if he could not hear the crowd's curses. Yu Zhengqua almost vomited blood after hearing this. The 3rd round was starting now? I'm afraid no one would take part in it. Junior brother Duan Qing. Zhengqua took a deep breath and squeezed out a smile. I didn't expect you to be so powerful at such a young age. Senior brother is really impressed by your ability. By the way, junior brother Duan Qing, even though you did not break the rules, if you were to take part in the competition, I'm afraid. Before he could finish, Qin Nan interrupted without mercy. What is it? Your City of Black Hands doesn't allow its disciples to take part in the competition? What kind of rule is that? So you're apologizing now? Why did you sell my spot to Zhao Feng in the beginning? Since you're so unkind, don't blame me for being unkind. Zhengqua was on the verge of tears. If it were anyone else, he, the city lord of the City of Black Hands, would have chased them away. However, this Duan Qing was the newly recruited disciple of the sacred Lord Blue Dragon, a person with a much stronger background than him. Quick update, the website is refreshing with few advertisements. I love this kind of website the most. You must give me a good review. Junior brother Qin Nan. Zhengqua was not stupid. He immediately understood why Qin Nan was so stubborn. He clenched his teeth and said, Everything that happened at the beginning was my fault. I hope you won't hold it against me. You are a magnanimous person. If you have any requests, feel free to tell me. Qin Nan said expressionlessly, 50,000 contribution points. What? Zhengqua suspected that he had misheard. That was a total of 50,000 contribution points. Even if they held a king of robbery competition, they would not be able to earn that much. Is there a problem? Qin Nan's eyes turned cold. No. Not a problem. Zheng Kuo summoned his courage and said. He clearly knew that if he did not deal with Qin Nan, the city of Black Hands would be done for. He immediately took out 50,000 contribution points and gave them to Qin Nan while enduring the pain in his heart. A love go shao sei ku, thanks. Qin Nan's mood improved slightly. Without wasting any more time, he carried the huge black stick and left the place. Qin Nan clearly knew that if he were still around after torturing these cultivators twice, they would not participate in the competition anymore. In that case, Qin Nan would not be able to earn a single contribution point, thus he would rather blackmail Zheng Kuo. Now that I have over 110,000 contribution points, I can exchange them for 11 primary stones. I'm not sure if that's enough for the divine battle spirit to rank up. Qin Nan's eyes burned passionately. If the divine battle spirit were to rank up to the D rank, he would stand at the peak of the lower district, unmatched among the geniuses and authorities. He then quickened his pace and headed straight to the Duanmu Mountain. On the Duanmu Mountain stood a huge palace, which was known as the Quest Hall. It was different from the Quest Hall built by the Xianling clan. Apart from accepting quests, one could also trade and sell various items. Qin Nan arrived at the bottom of the palace, which was fully crowded with people. Countless disciples and custodians were shuttling back and forth, with occasional envoys among them. I'd like to trade. Qin Nan arrived before one of the custodians and said. The custodian wore a calm expression and said, Junior brother, you can go to the other side if you want to trade. I only accept those with more than 10,000 contribution points. Qin Nan nodded his head and said, I'll need 11 primary stones. Here are 110,000 contribution points. In the meantime, Qin Nan took out his disciple badge and handed it to the custodian. 11 primary stones? The custodian was shocked. That's a total of 110,000 contribution points. How could this mere peak martial emperor realm cultivator possess so many contribution points? In the meantime, the custodian's expression changed tremendously when he saw the badge. Are you kidding me? This guy is the disciple of the Sacred Lord Blue Dragon? Since when did the Sacred Lord Blue Dragon recruit disciples? Could it be that this guy is a peerless genius? What is it? Qin Nan frowned his eyebrows. The custodian immediately collected his thoughts, as his attitude became slightly better, before he said in an awkward tone, Junior brother, it seems like you have no idea. There is a rule in the Qinglong sacred area. If you want to trade your contribution points for primary stones, you can only trade 3 per day. There's only 1 primary stone left today. Are you interested? What? Qin Nan's expression changed greatly. Only 3 primary stones a day? The entire Qinglong sacred area could only trade so little primary stones? At that instant, Qin Nan immediately recalled the Sacred Lord Blue Dragon. No wonder that old man was not willing to part with the primary stones. It turns out that the primary stones are this precious. 1 primary stone it is. Qin Nan took a deep breath and withheld the unpleasant feeling in his heart. Sure. The custodian immediately spent the 10,000 contribution points that Qin Nan had given him and went deep into the hall, before taking out a treasure box. Qin Nan scanned the box with his divine sense and found a primary stone filled with a tremendous force of the heavens and earth lying inside the treasure box. At this rate, even if I have enough contribution points to trade for primary stones every day, wouldn't I still be waiting at the entrance of the hall? Qin Nan showed no sign of excitement. Instead, he felt even more depressed. He had 100,000 contribution points, but he could not spend them. Junior brother. The custodian thought that Qin Nan was about to lose his temper after seeing the unpleasant expression on his face. He immediately blurted out, "Are you in need of these primary stones?" "That's right." Qin Nan glanced at him in astonishment, before a sudden thought crossed his mind and he asked, "Do you have any other way to obtain primary stones?" Although the Qinglong sacred area only gives out 3 primary stones every day, there are 2 other ways to exchange them for primary stones. The custodian said, "The first way is to refine pills. Once you've refined pills of the 6th grade or above, you can easily exchange them for primary stones in the Qinglong sacred area." Refining pills? Qin Nan's eyes flickered. He could learn how to refine pills. After all, he would need more primary stones to rank up his divine battle spirit. Therefore, he could earn some money through pill alchemy instead of robbing people. He did have this thought before, but he had no choice but to put it aside for the time being due to the series of events that had taken place. The second way is to accept honorable quests. The custodian said, "Today, the Qinglong sacred area has given out 5 honorable quests, and one of them is very suitable for you." Honorable quest? Qin Nan was slightly startled. In the Qinglong sacred area, the contribution points earned by selling mystical weapons, pills, completing quests, etc., were extremely limited. Only honorable quests like these could bring glory to the sacred area, and the rewards were extremely great, but they were extremely difficult to complete. "What honorable quests are there?" Qin Nan immediately asked. Although it was possible to earn primary stones through pill alchemy, it would take a long time. It would be great if there was a faster way to earn primary stones. The honorable quest is very simple, and it's very suitable for you. The custodian let out a smile and said, "In the lower district, there is a place called the Martial Ancestor Mystical Ground. This mystical ground is only accessible once a year, and every time it is accessible, there will be fortunate encounters within it. There are 3 spots available. If you manage to acquire this spot, you will be able to acquire the force of the mystical ground to cleanse your inner core, refine your nascent soul, and rank up to the martial ancestor realm." You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.